Chapter 892. Lu Yi observed for a while and noticed that the reduction of merit points was very slow. At this rate, if he continued cultivating for a day or night, he would not spend more than 5,000 merit points. 5,000 merit points was naturally nothing to Lu Yi, but a cultivator's cultivation was not a matter of a day or two, but years and months. 5,000 merit points a day, that would be 150,000 merit points a month, and 1,800,000 merit points a year. This number was somewhat terrifying. The richness of the heaven and earth spirit chi was comparable to that of the greatest spiritual land in Huitian Valley. Lu Yi naturally would not be satisfied with such an environment, and immediately moved his mind. In the next moment, the world energy gushing out from the whirlpool suddenly became denser, and correspondingly, the reduction of merit points also became faster. Using one's merit points to open a whirlpool that could gush out dense world energy, this was a cultivation method unique to cultivators above the true lake stage. In the 9 continents, this cultivation method was known as borrowing heaven's secrets. During this process, the amount of world energy gushing out from the vortex could be adjusted as one wished. The price one had to pay was nothing more than the speed at which one's contribution points were reduced. The denser the world energy drawn from the vortex, the faster one's contribution points would be reduced. Conversely, it was extremely convenient. Depending on the speed of the consumption of merit points, this cultivation method was divided into different levels. What Lu Yi needed to do now was to find a level that was most suitable for him. The higher the level, the denser the world energy, the faster the speed of cultivation. Everyone had their own limits. If the density of the world energy exceeded the cultivator's refining speed, then there would be unnecessary wastage. No one's merit points came from the wind. But if the density of the world energy was slower than the cultivator's refining speed, then it would imperceptibly reduce the cultivator's cultivation efficiency. Normally, cultivators who had just entered the true lake stage would choose the most basic first level, because this was enough to satisfy their cultivation needs. But this was obviously not suitable for Lu Yi. He had constructed many small funnels around him, and his refining speed of the world energy was much faster than ordinary true lake stage cultivators. The second level was also not enough. Only when the world energy gushing out from the whirlpool was adjusted to the third level, did Lu Yi feel that it was enough. This level was usually chosen by cultivators above the true lake stage 6th order. As for the higher levels, that was something that only advanced true lake stage cultivators could do. After that, there were levels suitable for divine sea realm cultivators. Of course, the higher the level, the greater the consumption. Lu Yi checked the rate at which his merit points were being consumed. It was about twice as fast as before. In other words, if he were to maintain such a cultivation environment, then he would have to spend 10,000 merit points a day and night, which would be 300,000 merit points a month. Of course, he wouldn't be able to cultivate for a long time, but even if he only cultivated for half a month, it would still cost him 150,000 merit points. Lu Yi had a lot of merit points. When he found out about the cultivation method of the true lake stage from Shui Yuan, he specially went to the Jade Blood Sect's treasure house to sell some items to the Tianji treasure house. This allowed him to amass a total of 500,000 merit points. Previously, he had bought some meat for the two of them, so he still had about 480,000 left. This was not a small number, but it could at most support Lu Ye's cultivation for 2 or 3 months. At that time he would have to return to the Blue Blood Sect again. It wasn't a troublesome matter. Such a cultivation method was undoubtedly very convenient. Cultivators of the 9 continents true lake stage and above, no matter where they were, could connect to Tianji and open a whirlpool, creating a suitable cultivation environment for themselves. This way they would have fewer restrictions. It was unlike the Spirit Stream battlefield and the Cloud River battlefield, where they had to be in their own sect's encampment or spiritual land to enjoy such convenience. Moreover, they could stop at any time so it wouldn't cause too much waste. This was incomparable to using spirit sticks to cultivate. Using spirit sticks to cultivate, once it started, it couldn't be stopped. Therefore, merit points were extremely important to any cultivator, especially those in the big sections. Only with enough merit points could cultivators of the true lake stage and above continuously increase their cultivation, strengthening the foundation of the big sections. Previously, the Blue Blood Sect had very few people. The sect was desolate and there was almost no income. Therefore, even with Shui Yuan's outstanding talent, she couldn't step into the Divine Sea stage. This was because there was no way to obtain merit points. It wasn't until Lu Yi gave her the soul-cleansing water and brought great benefits to the sect that Shui Yuan soared. Because she had sufficient resources, she didn't have to worry about cultivation anymore. The inheritance of a big sect required unity from top to bottom. Those at the top protected those at the bottom, while those at the bottom worked hard to grow. They also created and brought wealth to the sect. They relied on each other and shared glory and disgrace. Lu Yi didn't try to see what the fourth level of cultivation environment was like. To him, since the current cultivation environment was enough to satisfy his cultivation needs, if he chose the next level of cultivation environment, there would be unnecessary waste. Beside him, Yi and Hupa had already started cultivating. He seemed to have nothing to do. He simply took out the fire spirit rock and activated the power of the talent tree to continuously devour it. The fire spirit rock contained extremely pure fire spiritual energy, which was the power that the talent tree craved. Although the benefits that a piece of fire spirit rock brought to the talent tree were far less than a lump of fire spirit rock. But he also thought that once the number of S-grade questions was enough, it would be enough to solve many problems. Very quickly, the fire spirit rock in his hand was exhausted and turned into powder. Lu Yi hurriedly took out another piece. As time passed, his merit points and the fire spirit rock were constantly consumed. Although the cultivation process was monotonous, Lu Yi didn't feel bored because he was looking forward to it. He really wanted to know what the talent tree would look like after this transformation. However, he didn't forget his duty as a patrol officer. Since he had received his monthly salary, he naturally had to fulfill his duties. So, he would take out 2 hours every day to patrol around with Yi and Hupa. Even though he knew that this was purely a formality, 2 days later, while Lu Yi was cultivating, he suddenly felt the battlefield mark on the back of his hand heat up slightly. He quickly immersed himself in investigating. Name, Lu Yi. Identity, Blue Blood Sect Disciple, Great Moon Pass Ash Flame Mountain Pass Guard, Great Moon Pass Ash Flame Mountain Pass Patrol Guard. Cultivation, First Order True Lake Realm. Location, Ash Flame Mountain Pass War Province. Merit, 465,632 points. Military merit, 394,650 points. Lu Yi was stunned. He took a closer look to make sure that he wasn't seeing things. The military merit column was indeed more than 390,000 points. How could this be? He clearly remembered that his military merit should be 88,410 points. In the past few days he had been cultivating in Ash Flame Mountain Pass and patrolling around. He hadn't done anything else, so how could he suddenly have more than 300,000 military merit? Such a huge amount of military merit could only be compared to the harvest in Immortal Essence City. At that time he also obtained 300,000 military merit, but that was from killing the insect race. It was a merit that could be traced back. So, what was this 300,000 military merit all about? Lu Yi wasn't happy. Instead he felt that something was wrong. The Heaven's secret was known to be fair and just. Previously, the missing moon immortal had given him a bunch of random tasks. It seemed like she was tormenting him, but in fact she was trying to find a way to increase his military merit. Lu Yi felt that such a method was inappropriate. Sooner or later, something would happen. Suddenly he had more than 300,000 military merit. This was the prelude to something big. After pondering for a moment, Lu Yi had some guesses in his heart. If things were as he thought, it might be fine, but if things weren't as he thought, then it would be troublesome. He hurriedly stopped his cultivation and flashed out of the bamboo building to look for the missing moon immortal. After searching for a long time he couldn't find her. He didn't know where she had run off to. Helpless, he could only contact her through Wei Ling. There was still no reply. Just as Lu Yi was at his wit's end, this woman suddenly appeared in front of him like a ghost. Looking at her posture, it seemed like she had fought with someone not long ago. Her hair was a little disheveled. The corner of Lu Yi's eyes twitched. He immediately understood what she had done. Clearly she had gone to find trouble with Wanzhong Gang. He didn't know if she had taken advantage of him. What is it? The missing moon immortal spoke, her expression still as cold as ice. My lord, this humble servant suddenly has an additional military merit. This is a good thing. Is there a problem? The amount is too large. This humble servant is uneasy. The missing moon immortal immediately understood what he was worried about. He was afraid that she had used her authority to give him military merit. You deserve it. Don't worry. Lu Yi frowned. My lord, please explain. The missing moon immortal explained slowly. Wanmo Ridge's Lone Mountain City was attacked by the fire spirit race. The losses were not small. You were the one who lured the fire spirit race over, so the military merit naturally belongs to you. On top of that, you saved my life, which is another great merit. A few days ago I asked Tianji to reward you for your merit, so this is what you deserve. Lu Yi was stunned. the fire spirit race attacking Lone Mountain City is also my merit? Why not? Thinking about it carefully, it made sense. The fire spirit race was created by him, Wuxia, and the others, and they led the fire spirit race to the Lone Mountain Pass. Because of this, the Lone Mountain Pass suffered a great loss. Relatively speaking, they had contributed to the Grand Heaven Alliance. With his true lake stage cultivation, he used all sorts of methods to save the missing moon immortal under the eyes of 3 spirit sea stage cultivators. This was an even greater merit. If this matter was reported to Grand Heaven City, there would definitely be rewards. However, the missing moon immortal knew that Lu Yi should not be too ostentatious now. Therefore, she only asked Tianji to reward him with military merit. She did not report this matter to Grand Heaven City. How much military merit did they give you? The missing moon immortal did not want to ask, but she could not resist her curiosity. More than 300,000. Lu Yi reported honestly. Not bad. The missing moon immortal said indifferently. She turned and left. However, there was a trace of shock in her eyes. She knew that Lu Ye's harvest this time would not be small. However, she did not expect it to be so much. Tianji seemed to favor this little guy. Chapter 893. Lu Ye's worries were swept away when he found out that the merit points were granted by Tianji and not the missing moon immortal using her authority. How wonderful. He turned to look in the direction of Tianji Hall. The treasure he wanted could finally be obtained. He hurried to Tianji Hall and pressed his hand on the Tianji pillar, connecting his mind to the War Merit Pavilion. In the next instant, he appeared in front of the War Merit Pavilion's simple doors. Lu Yi was naturally excited to suddenly obtain such a huge amount of merit points. After arriving, he raised his hand and pushed the doors open. Sensing his arrival, the golden and silver flood dragons had just poked their heads out when they were pressed back down by him. The doors were heavy, but it didn't take much effort to push them open. Only when the doors were completely open did Lu Yi realize that something wasn't right. He wasn't in a hurry to enter the War Merit Pavilion. Instead, he stood at the door and looked around. The golden and silver flood dragons popped their heads out again. The silver flood dragon was overjoyed. "Kid, what delicious food did you bring this time?" "Bring my ass." He had just fed them 2 days ago, but he didn't know why the silver flood dragon always looked like a hungry ghost reincarnated. Moreover, he was in a hurry to buy that soul tool today and completely forgot to bring meat for the 2 flood dragons. Compared to this, Lu Yi was more concerned about another matter. He pondered for a moment and said, "This door, doesn't it require the 2 of you to work together to open it?" The first time he came, the 2 flood dragons wriggled and twisted above the door, turning into a concentric circle. Then the door slowly opened. This caused Lu Yi to have a preconceived notion that the opening and closing of the door was controlled by the 2 flood dragons. But now it seemed that this wasn't the case. Tianji had already given him the authority to enter the War Merit Pavilion. He could enter and leave at will without the 2 flood dragons doing anything. Hearing Lu Ye's question, the silver flood dragon couldn't help but be stunned. It didn't know how to explain and could only look at the golden flood dragon. The golden flood dragon's dignified voice sounded. "Of course not, but we can also open it." Lu Yi was puzzled. "Then every time before you open the door, why do you cross each other and twist into a concentric circle?" He thought that the diagram was the key to opening the door. The golden flood dragon was momentarily speechless. The silver flood dragon's eyes also turned anxiously. Lu Yi roughly understood what they were thinking and found it funny, but he didn't interrupt them. He just cupped his hands and said, "Thank you for your trouble." As he spoke, he entered the Hall of Battle Merits and headed straight for the stone platform where the soul armament was. "Big brother, this brat found out. What should we do?" The silver dragon asked anxiously. "If he knows that he won't need us to open the door in the future, I'm afraid he won't bring us any more delicious food." "I don't think so. This brat doesn't look like the kind of person who would burn bridges after crossing the river." The golden flood dragon looked calm on the surface, but he was a little annoyed in his heart. He couldn't figure out how he had been discovered. The kid who had come in last time hadn't noticed anything for many years. "Big brother, it's a lake. Humans are the most treacherous. This brat looks honest and considerate, but who knows what kind of character he has. We can't expect him to be merciful." "You're thinking of..." The golden flood dragon looked up at the silver flood dragon. A look of determination flashed across the silver flood dragon's eyes. "Since we've been discovered, we can only do that. Otherwise, wouldn't it be sad if we couldn't even smell the scent of blood in the future?" The golden flood dragon pondered for a moment and sighed. "Then let's do it." The 2 flood dragons' conversation was silent. Lu Yi, who was in the War Merit Pavilion, naturally didn't know. At this moment he was standing in front of a stone platform, looking at a small pagoda-like treasure on the stone platform. The pagoda was divided into 9 levels and was small and exquisite. Most importantly, this pagoda didn't look like a real thing, but was constantly changing between illusion and reality. Soul artifact, soul-suppressing pagoda. Being both illusion and reality, this was the characteristic of most soul artifacts. This was because soul artifacts were things that cultivators stored in their divine sea. This kind of thing was extremely difficult to refine. Even for those divine sea cultivators, it was extremely difficult to obtain a soul artifact. For example, the golden lock that Thought Moon Immortal had given to Lu Yi before. Although it had the ability to protect the soul to a certain extent, it was far from the level of a soul artifact. This item was rare and extremely expensive. 108,888 battle merits. This price left Lu Yi speechless. He felt that Heaven's Secret had a bit of a bad taste. Otherwise, why would he come up with such a price? Without hesitation he exchanged for it. Immediately, the corresponding number of battle merits decreased, leaving him with only 25,762 battle merits. The seal on the stone platform disappeared. Lu Yi raised his hand and grabbed the soul-suppressing pagoda. His spiritual will surged and enveloped the soul-suppressing pagoda. Lu Yi could clearly feel that the small soul-suppressing pagoda was showing signs of perfect integration with his spiritual will. As he retracted his spiritual will, the soul-suppressing pagoda also disappeared as if it was never there. He wasn't in a hurry to leave. With so many battle merits in his hands, he could finally get his hands on the things that he wanted to buy but couldn't bear to. There were many treasures in the War Merit Pavilion. Previously, Lu Yi had a lot of battle merits, but because he was in a hurry to reach the True Lake stage, he used them all to exchange for the golden spiritual lot. He could only look at the treasures with different uses and reluctantly part with them. Now that he had the capital, he could naturally shout that he wanted them all. Battle platform, 11,000 battle merits, exchange. Tracking plate, 30,000 battle merits, exchange. Deity vanquishing sword, 26,000 battle merits, exchange. After purchasing all the treasures, he was left with about 140,000 battle merits. Lu Yi had never experienced the feeling of being so rich. In the past, he had the opportunity to obtain large amounts of battle merits, but they were quickly spent. Unlike this time, he still had a large surplus after exchanging for so many treasures. He didn't use the remaining battle merits. His cultivation had already reached the True Lake stage, so he wasn't in a hurry to improve. He didn't stay any longer and walked out of the War Merit Pavilion. Just as he reached the entrance, he was stopped by the Silver Flood Dragon. "Senior, what can I do for you?" Lu Yi was in a hurry to go back and check out the power of the soul-suppressing pagoda. Naturally, he didn't want to stay here any longer. Even though he didn't bring any food for the 2 flood dragons this time, it had only been 2 to 3 days since his last visit. Moreover, he fed the 2 flood dragons on his own accord. No one asked him to do so. The 2 flood dragons wouldn't make things difficult for him because of this. The Silver Flood Dragon tried its best to act mysterious. "Kid, the last time you came, I noticed that you had already nurtured a soul body and formed a spiritual will." "That's right." Lu Yi nodded. He still didn't know what it wanted to do. Spiritual will has always been exclusive to Divine Ocean Stage cultivators. Even though I don't know what kind of opportunity you had, or what kind of fortune you had to be able to form a spiritual will as a true lake god, have you thought about it? If you meet a Divine Ocean Stage cultivator, you'll still be an ant that can be easily crushed. You won't be able to defend against a Divine Ocean Stage cultivator's spiritual will attack. Fontuan read. Yes. Lu Yi agreed. Thinking back to when he was attacked by Wanzhang Gang's spiritual will, he immediately fell into a coma. He couldn't help but feel a little guilty. If you didn't form a spiritual will, then it's fine. At most, your soul would be injured. But since you've formed a spiritual will, you must have a Divine Ocean. If you encounter a Divine Ocean Stage cultivator's spiritual will attack again, it won't be as simple as your soul being injured. It's very likely that your Divine Ocean will shatter and you'll never be able to step into the Divine Ocean Stage again. The Silver Flood Dragon's tone gradually became serious. Lu Yi kept nodding as he listened. Senior is right. In the jade slip that the Thought Moon Immortal gave him, this was also the reason why Lu Yi was so eager to exchange for the soul-suppressing pagoda. As a true lake god, it seemed like a good thing to nurture a soul body and form a spiritual will. In fact, it also increased his own risk. He had to guard against that possibility as soon as possible. Senior, what do you want to say? The silver flood dragon circled back and forth. Lu Yi really didn't know what he wanted to do. The silver flood dragon chuckled, "Kid, do you want to know? Is there any way to protect your divine ocean?" As soon as he finished speaking, Lu Yi took out the soul-suppressing pagoda. "Will this work?" The silver flood dragon's eyes widened. He didn't expect Lu Yi to buy this treasure. He was speechless for a moment. After a long while he muttered, "This is possible. If this thing didn't work, then there was no treasure in this world that could protect one's soul." He hurriedly looked up at the golden flood dragon. The golden flood dragon understood and said majestically, "Although this thing is wonderful, it can only suppress the inside, not the outside." Lu Yi put away the soul-suppressing pagoda and looked at the golden flood dragon solemnly. "Senior, please enlighten me." The golden flood dragon said, "This thing is called the soul-suppressing pagoda. If you refine it, it can guard your divine ocean. In the future, when you encounter a spiritual will attack, no matter how strong the enemy is, it can ensure that your divine ocean remains unperturbed and unbreakable. However, this thing only has this effect. It can't guard against spiritual will attacks. So, do you understand?" Lu Yi came to a realization, that is to say, even if this thing can guard my divine ocean and prevent it from being broken, it will still be able to withstand attacks. Smart. The golden flood dragon had a teachable look on his face. Lu Yi's good mood was instantly reduced by half. If this was really the case, then the soul-suppressing pagoda was inferior to the golden lock that the Thought Moon Immortal gave him. Although the golden lock wasn't a soul tool, it could more or less defend against spiritual will attacks. Lu Yi originally thought that with the soul-suppressing pagoda, he would no longer have to worry about spiritual will attacks from divine ocean cultivators in the future, but now it seemed that the soul-suppressing pagoda's effect was far from what he had imagined. If a real warrior of the spirit sea realm were to see the barricade of the soul, he would be able to see all the effects of the barricade of the soul. He wouldn't be like Lu Yi, who thought that with the barricade of the soul, he would even dare to fight against a warrior of the spirit sea realm. The two flood dragons suddenly talking to him about this and mentioning something about internal and external defense, Lu Yi couldn't help but have some guesses. He immediately respectfully asked, "Senior, may I ask what method you have to defend against spiritual will attacks?" "Then you've asked the right person." The silver flood dragon instantly became complacent. "The two of us find you quite pleasing to the eye, so we've decided to teach you a secret technique specifically for protecting your soul. It can also be considered as repayment for all the things you've done before." How could I accept this? Although Lu Yi said this, he simply cupped his fists and said, "I dare not refuse an elder's gift." "Then I thank the two of you for your kindness." The silver flood dragon looked at him speechlessly. For the first time he found that this kid in front of him was a bit thick-skinned. He clicked to download the best book-chasing app. Many readers use this to read books aloud. Chapter 894. The golden flood dragon's dignified voice rang out. "Although it is called a secret technique, it is actually a method, but to use this method, you must have a certain degree of trust in the two of us. If you don't trust us, you will not be able to use it." "I trust you." Lu Yi nodded decisively. The golden flood dragon did not know how to respond for a while. Originally, it thought that if Lu Yi did not agree, it would have to say a few words of persuasion, but now there was no need to waste its breath. However, he still had to warn him, "Kid, when you go out and meet other people, you can't be so naive. Who knows when you'll suffer a big loss. Are you sure that us two brothers don't have any evil intentions towards you?" Being called naive for the first time, Lu Yi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. After thinking for a moment, he said, "Although I don't know why the two of you are trapped here or how long you have been here, this place should not be accessible to just anyone. If something happens to me, perhaps the two of you will have to wait a long time before someone comes to chat with you and relieve your boredom, so I believe that the two seniors will not harm me." Hearing these words, the silver flood dragon nodded repeatedly. "Boy, you really are a smart man." The golden flood dragon also sighed, "It seems you are not completely ignorant." The method they were about to use would cause a certain amount of damage to themselves. Pleasing Lu Yi so that he would often bring some food to eat in the future was secondary, but the most important thing was to protect Lu Yi. Just as Lu Yi said, they had been trapped here for too long. Although there were occasionally people blessed by the heavens who came here during this period, they disappeared without a trace after a few years. The last person who was qualified to come here was several decades ago. If something happened to Lu Yi, who knew how long they would have to wait for the next one? If not for this consideration, the two flood dragons would not have used such a method. "In that case, let's begin, boy, don't resist," the golden flood dragon shouted, and in the next moment, the two flood dragons' bodies released a bright light as their monster chi surged. Lu Yi only saw 2 points of light, one gold and one silver, suddenly fly out from the two flood dragons and crash straight into his head. With a buzzing sound, Lu Yi was almost unable to maintain the manifestation of his divine sense here. When he came back to his senses, he found that the two flood dragons in front of him were a little weak, as if they had been greatly injured. "The two of you are..." Lu Yi was confused. The golden flood dragon said weakly, "Go ahead. This secret skill is called Double Dragon Sea Protection. With the help of your barricading soul tower, one can defend the outside and the other can suppress the inside. You will be protected from both inside and outside. In the future, even if you are attacked by the spiritual will of a warrior of the Spirit Sea realm, you won't have to worry about dying on the spot." Lu Yi bowed solemnly, "Thank you for your kindness, seniors. I will visit you again next time." As he said this, his mind withdrew from this place. As soon as he left, the two weak flood dragons regained their vigor. The silver flood dragon said happily, "Big brother, I'm afraid that kid will be deeply grateful to us now. You won't have to worry about not having food in the future." The golden flood dragon reprimanded it, "It's been so many years, yet you're still so short-sighted. Do you only know how to eat?" The silver flood dragon felt a little wronged. "Being trapped here, if I don't think about eating, what else can I think about?" The golden Jiao dragon looked at it faintly. "You also said that we are trapped here. What should we think about?" The silver flood dragon pondered for a moment, and its body suddenly trembled. It realized the meaning of its big brother's words. "Big brother, could it be that you have high hopes for him? Since ancient times, many heroes have come here, but none of them made it to the end. I'm not sure if he can make it to the end, but he came here with the lowest cultivation level. Furthermore, he nurtured his soul body with his true lake body and gave birth to his spiritual sense. Just this point alone is something that his ancestors can't compare to. Perhaps we should indeed have some expectations for him." The silver flood dragon fell into deep thought. After a while, it shook its head and said, "After being disappointed so many times, expectations become a luxury. Who knows?" The two flood dragons retreated into the door, and the place fell into silence. In the Tianji Hall, Lu Ye's mind was immersed as he checked the changes in his deity ocean. There were no changes to his deity ocean. It was still the same deity's lake. However, what was different from before was that there was a small 9-story pagoda in his deity's lake. Outside the deity's lake, there were two dragon-like things that were connected head to tail. Gold and silver lights intersected to protect the deity's lake. This should be the technique that the golden and silver flood dragons used together, called the Double Dragon Sea Protection. The two dragon shadows were most likely the manifestation of the two flood dragons' spiritual sense. After observing for a while, Lu Yi felt a sense of security. In terms of spiritual sense protection, he now had 3 layers of techniques. The first layer was naturally the golden lock that the missing moon immortal gave him. It had a certain degree of resistance, but its effect was limited. The second layer was the Double Dragon Sea Protection. With the gold and silver dragon shadows guarding the deity's lake, it would be impossible for a divine sea realm cultivator to break through his spiritual sense protection. Even if it was broken through, he still had the soul-suppressing pagoda to suppress the deity's lake. It could ensure that the deity's lake would not be broken. With these 3 layers of techniques, the difference between him and a divine sea realm cultivator was purely in terms of strength. The hidden danger in his heart had been eliminated, and he was in a good mood. As for what he said to the 2 flood dragons, it was naturally not everything. He didn't know where the 2 flood dragons came from, but they were definitely very powerful. They must be the top existences in the 9 regions, and he didn't know how many years they had lived. As the saying goes, people become shrewd with age, and demons were the same. How could Lu Yi trust them so easily? The reason why Lu Yi let them do what they wanted was not because he trusted them, but because he trusted Tianji. Tianji gave him the authority to enter and exit the War Merit Pavilion, and they were trapped in the War Merit Pavilion to guard the gate. There must be Tianji's way of operating. If they really had any unfavorable thoughts or practices, Tianji would punish them. It turned out that he had indeed benefited from them. He had improved the protection of his spiritual sense to the extreme. After leaving the Tianji Hall, Lu Yi went to the front of the missing moon immortal's bamboo house. He spread out his divine thoughts and sensed the breath of the missing moon immortal from the bamboo house. After confirming that she was here, he cupped his fists and said, "Sir, I want to take a day off." "What are you going to do?" The voice of the missing moon immortal came out from the bamboo house, but there was no sign of her. "I want to go back to Haoyan City to be promoted." The rank of a soldier was directly related to the number of military merits a cultivator had obtained. Whether the cultivator used these military merits or not, it would not be affected. Wei Wei's accumulated military merits were 500,000. He had reached this point before, so the initial military rank he got from the official department of Haotian City was Wei Wei. The next rank was senior captain, which required a total of 1 million military merits. Lu Yi was not sure how many military merits he had obtained before, but after this, he should have at least 1 million, which was enough for him to be promoted. The reason why he was so anxious was naturally because it was related to the amount of his monthly salary. A Wei Wei's monthly salary was 20,000 military merits, while a senior captain's salary was 30,000 military merits. Moreover, he had two positions. In other words, after being promoted, his monthly salary would be 60,000 military merits, which could be exchanged for 4 golden spiritual sticks. Things like military ranks were naturally meant to be enjoyed as soon as possible. Therefore, he could delay his cultivation for a while. Moreover, with his current speed, a round trip to Haotian City would only take 1 day and 1 night. It would not delay him too much. Go on, there's no need to rush back. After bidding farewell to the missing moon immortal, Lu Yi identified the direction, took out his spiritual boat, and flew towards Haotian City. It seemed like he had just arrived from Haotian City not long ago. At most, it would be slightly more than a month. After advancing to the true lake realm, his flying speed was also much faster. Along the way, Lu Yi looked relaxed and was not in a hurry. While flying, he did not forget to take out the fire spirit rock and activate the talent tree's power to engulf it. 4 hours later, he was already far away from Tsangyan Mountain Pass. When he passed by a spiritual mountain, Lu Yi suddenly felt something. He looked down and saw a figure standing on top of the spiritual mountain. After sizing up, Lu Yi frowned. It was not that he recognized this person, but this person was wearing a white mask. Under the mask, he was looking in Lu Ye's direction. Obviously, he was looking at Lu Yi. Many cultivators liked to wear masks. Some did it because they did not want others to see their true face, while others deliberately mystified themselves. Lu Yi was the former. In the 9 regions, there were all kinds of strange patterns on masks. There were also such white masks. However, if there was a red and blue pattern on the left and right sides of the white mask, it would be unusual. Lu Yi had seen such a mask before. That was in the Cloud River battlefield. On his way to the 100 Formation Pagoda, he was being chased by many cultivators of the Myriad Demons Ridge. When he passed by a place called the Pai River, a woman wearing a mask like this appeared out of nowhere and helped him. The strength that the woman displayed was far beyond an ordinary Cloud River 9th Order cultivator. After that, Lu Yi realized that the woman was not a Cloud River realm cultivator, but a true Lake realm cultivator. That woman should belong to a mysterious organization. This organization was very resourceful, and could set up many secret strongholds in the Cloud River battlefield. They could set up teleportation arrays, and could even send cultivators above the Cloud River tier into the Cloud River battlefield like the Chenji Business Alliance. At that time, Lu Yi thanked her and asked for her name. The woman did not answer and only said that she was following orders. She insisted on forcing Lu Yi to return to the 9 regions because there were too many people chasing after him. Lu Yi naturally did not comply. The two of them even had a conflict. However, during the fight, some seal in the woman's body seemed to have broken, and her true cultivation was revealed. She was then expelled from the Cloud River battlefield. Not much time had passed, and this experience was still fresh in Lu Ye's mind. Naturally, he would not forget it. After that incident, he always felt that he would meet people from this organization again. He never thought that he would meet them here. Lu Yi himself often wore a mask to do things, so he naturally knew what these people were thinking. This place was the only way back to Grand Sky City from the Blue Flame Mountain Pass. The other party had obviously been waiting here for a long time. Moreover, this location was very subtle. It was between the Blue Flame Mountain Pass and Grand Sky City. If anything happened here, neither Grand Sky City nor the Blue Flame Mountain Pass would be aware. The other party was obviously waiting here because they were afraid of the Thought Moon Immortal and the Masters of Grand Sky City. Chapter 895. Lu Yi naturally did not have a good impression of such sneaky behavior. His instincts told him not to get involved with the people of this organization. Otherwise it would be very troublesome. As for the favor of the mysterious woman for saving his life, there was no way he could talk about it. Even without her help, Lu Yi was confident that he could escape. It could even be said that her appearance had complicated things. Many thoughts flashed through his mind. Lu Yi immediately retracted his gaze. While he was secretly on guard, he prepared to fly over. Since the other party dared to appear here so openly, there was a high chance that they were from the Grand Heaven Alliance. There was no need to worry about being interrogated. "Are you Lu Yier of the Jade Blood Sect, fellow cultivator Lu?" the person below shouted. "No." Lu Yi replied decisively. Then, under the other party's stunned gaze, he quickly flew away. The other party did not show any signs of pursuing him. They merely watched him leave. Lu Yi frowned. The situation was somewhat different from what he had imagined, however he did not care. If the other party did not pursue him, it would save him some trouble. It was more important to get to Grand Heaven City and get promoted. After flying for a while, Lu Yi suddenly felt that something was not right. The surrounding scenery was too familiar. It was as if he had seen it before. When he looked up again, he saw an even more familiar spirit peak in front of him. On top of that spirit peak, a figure stood. He wore a white mask. Lu Ye's expression could not help but turn serious. As expected, something was not right. Before he got close, the person in the distance shouted, "Are you Lu Yier of the Jade Blood Sect, fellow cultivator Lu?" It was as if time had turned back and he had experienced what he had just experienced once again. This time Lu Yi did not even bother to reply. He directly turned around and flew in another direction. A moment later he encountered that spirit peak again. When he saw the cultivator on top of that spirit peak again, he asked patiently, "Are you Lu Yier of the Jade Blood Sect, fellow cultivator Lu?" Lu Yi looked at him deeply. When he met the mischievous gaze under that person's mask, how could he not know that he had fallen into someone else's trap? He ignored that person and turned in another direction. He activated the Insight Spirit Tattoo to enhance his eyes. As he flew, he observed. He kept experiencing the same scene, meeting the same person on the same spiritual peak and hearing the same words. Lu Yi originally thought that he had fallen into some kind of great array, but after careful observation for a long time, he was sure that this was not a great array. This was because even if it was a great array with his current attainments in the Array Dao and Insight Spirit inscriptions, he could still see some clues. But in reality he still hadn't found any traces of the formation. Since it wasn't a formation, it had to be a treasure. Like the Nine-Front Formation, it was a treasure that could create a space of its own. Lu Yi was secretly on guard. Although he was only a first-order True Lake Realm cultivator, he had already developed his divine sense, so his perception was extremely sharp. Being able to trap him here without him noticing meant that the one who did this must be a Spirit-Withered Sea Realm cultivator. The person who shouted at him previously was not in the Spiritual Sea stage, but was only in the True Lake stage. In other words, there was an expert behind this person. "Are you Lu Yier of the Jade Blood Sect, fellow Taoist Lu?" Lu Yi landed in front of him and looked him up and down. She nodded slightly and said, "Yes, it's me." The other party had already made a move and had identified him, so there was no point in denying it. "I've heard a lot about you." The man cupped his fists in greeting. "What's the matter?" "My family, sir, wants to see fellow Taoist." "Your family, sir?" Lu Yi narrowed his eyes slightly. "Since you want to see me, why do you have to hide? Let's do it openly. There are some reasons that I can't explain, so I hope fellow Taoist can forgive me." The masked cultivator lowered his head slightly as if apologizing. "Lead the way," the masked cultivator said, "but before that, I have to test fellow Taoist's methods and see if fellow Taoist is qualified to meet sir." He spoke politely, but Lu Yi was amused. "Your family, sir, wants to see me, but before that, he wants to see my abilities? Fellow Taoist, please forgive me." "Forgive me or not, you have to survive first. Do you really think I'm made of mud that can be manipulated by others?" As soon as he finished speaking, the graceful saber light had already slashed down. The masked cultivator obviously didn't expect Lu Yi to suddenly make a move, so he hurriedly took out his spirit artifact and placed it in front of him. In the next moment his expression changed. Originally, when he saw that Lu Yi was only a first-order True Lake Realm cultivator, he didn't pay much attention to him. Even though he had inquired about Lu Yi before and knew that he was good at killing enemies above his realm, he had already given him a very high evaluation. But after they really fought, he discovered that Lu Ye's foundation was much deeper than he had expected. Copious and irresistible strength wrapped in incomparably violent spirit energy, Lu Yi, with his saber in hand, carried the saber intent of the tyrant saber art. A strong sense of oppression and invasion swept over, causing the masked cultivator's chest to tighten for a moment. One had to know that his cultivation was several minor realms higher than Lu Ye's. Such monstrous strength, such a foundation, he was simply a monster. He couldn't help but be shocked. Ding ding dang dang dang. The sound of spirit artifacts colliding rang out continuously, and the masked cultivator was forced to retreat step by step. For a moment he was suppressed, until a crashing sound rang out, and the saber in Lu Ye's hand shattered. His mountain coiling saber was still in the process of being upgraded. The saber he had just summoned was a saber similar to the mountain coiling saber. It was unknown where he had obtained it from. In terms of quality, it was only a high-grade spirit artifact, so how could it withstand Lu Ye's fierce slashes? The masked cultivator's attack suddenly slowed. Although Lu Yi took out another saber in the next moment, the masked cultivator was still a true Lake Realm cultivator, so he naturally wouldn't miss this opportunity. Just as he was about to counterattack, his figure suddenly paused. In the next moment he hurriedly retreated and shouted, "Fellow Taoist Lu, the future is long. Farewell." As if he had received some instructions, he had already retreated. Lu Yi still wanted to pursue, but an astonishing force swept over from the front. He hurriedly stopped, and the force blasted him back several dozen meters before he could stabilize himself. When he looked up again, there was no trace of the masked cultivator. He had long since fled. The surrounding scenery seemed to distort, and Lu Yi knew in his heart that the method of the master behind him had failed. Standing in the same place, Lu Yi frowned and cursed his bad luck. He didn't know who the divine Sea Realm cultivator behind him was, but it was obvious that this person had blocked him. However, the other party didn't have the intention to kill him, otherwise he would have already shown himself. However, the other party said that he wanted to see him, but left in a hurry. He didn't know what happened. He couldn't figure it out, but he was too lazy to think about it. He would definitely come into contact with this mysterious organization again in the future, and sooner or later the truth would come out. After determining the direction, he once again rushed towards Grand Sky City. This time it was extremely smooth, and the previous time reversal situation didn't occur. 100 miles away, two figures stood. One was the masked cultivator, and the other was a spirited old man. Thinking back to the short exchange with Lu Yi just now, the masked cultivator still had a look of shock on his face. This was because his cultivation was several levels higher than Lu Ye's, but he didn't gain the slightest advantage. This meant that if it was a life-and-death battle, he might not be Lu Ye's opponent. This was too exaggerated. How could a person's foundation be so strong? One had to know that he himself was an elite of a sect who could kill enemies above his level. "My lord, is the thought moon immortal here?" He restrained the distracting thoughts in his mind and asked. "No. If not, then why did he leave in such a hurry? Didn't my lord want to see him?" "There's no need." The old man shook his head slowly. The reason why he wanted to see Lu Yi was to test his foundation. This point had already been verified just now. He could be said to be shockingly talented, and completely met the organization's requirements to recruit him. The second reason was to investigate Lu Ye's temperament. The old man had already made some judgments about this matter. Since his goal had been achieved, there was naturally no need to meet him. If he really did meet him, it would only increase Lu Ye's disgust, and the gains wouldn't make up for the losses. This time this old man was wrong. The old man stroked his beard. Although he was a spirit sea realm cultivator, he didn't mind his mistakes at all. "I thought he was just a kid who had just reached true Lake Realm, and a little trick would be enough to make him look up to me. I didn't want to overreach myself. It's fine if I don't meet him. This kid is arrogant and somewhat unruly. If you come into contact with him in the future, don't try to play any tricks and treat him with sincerity." "Yes," the masked cultivator replied respectfully. "Then about recruiting him, the time hasn't come yet. A person like him will see the problem sooner or later. When the time comes, he will naturally have the same philosophy as us. If that's the case, even if we don't recruit him, he'll still be a comrade." The masked cultivator seemed to be deep in thought. "You may leave." The old man waved his hand. The masked cultivator cupped his fists and respectfully retreated. The old man raised his head and looked in the direction of the Jade Blood sect. He pondered for a moment, then flew up and headed straight for the Jade Blood sect. He hadn't seen that old man Tang Yifeng for many years. He didn't know how that old man was doing. Suddenly encountering such an incident delayed him a little, but the rest of his journey was smooth. In the evening, the huge Grand Heaven City came into view. After flying for a while, he finally arrived at Grand Heaven City. With his previous experience, Lu Yi naturally wouldn't look for the city gate, but went straight in. Compared to the last time he was here, Grand Heaven City was undoubtedly much quieter. The number of cultivators coming and going was also not as high as before. The last time was a special situation. The realm fusion that was hard to come by in many years was encountered by this generation of Cloud River tier cultivators. A large number of Cloud River tier cultivators had nowhere to go, so they all flocked into Grand Heaven City, and were then sent to various passes. In the various passes, the number of Cloud River tier cultivators was much higher than before. Only Blue Flame Mountain Pass was special. Including Hupa, there were only 4 members. He flew into Grand Heaven City, and based on his memory of the last time he was here, he went straight in the direction of the Department of Official Affairs. Before he reached the Department of Official Affairs, a familiar figure suddenly flew in front of him. It was the head of the Department of Law, Qian Wudong. He was also the guy who threw him into the punishment prison last time. When Lu Yi saw him from afar, he couldn't help but shrink his neck. He wanted to change direction and avoid this person. Chapter 896. However, as soon as he raised his head, he saw Qian Wudong looking at him with a smile. The distance between them was quickly closing. Lu Yi had no choice but to fly over. He cupped his fists and said, "Greetings, my lord." Qian Wudong stood 10 meters away from Lu Yi with his hands behind his back. He glanced at Lu Yi and nodded. "Not bad. You're really here. Why are you here?" "I have some personal matters to deal with," Lu Yi replied casually without explaining too much. Qian Wudong smiled and said, "When you get back to Tsangyan Mountain Pass, send my regards to your pass master. She came and left in a hurry a month ago and didn't even want to see me." "A month ago?" Lu Yi was stunned. Qian Wudong smiled meaningfully. "That's when you were locked up in the prison. How else do you think you got to Tsangyan Mountain Pass?" Lu Yi didn't know about this. However, Qian Wudong didn't want to explain too much. He just said a few words and flew away from Lu Yi. Lu Yi was left alone to think. According to Qian Wudong's words, Lu Yi's trip to Tsangyan Mountain was directly related to Nian Yuxian's visit to Haotian City. It seemed that Nian Yuxian had asked for him from the recruitment department. There were numerous mountain passes on the defensive line of the military province, yet he just so happened to head to such a special place like Azure Flame Mountain Pass. Moreover, Yearning Moon Immortal had been guarding it all by herself for a few tens of years before that. Perhaps second senior sister had contributed to it. The two women had a good relationship. There was no one on the front line to take care of Lu Yi, so Nian Yuxian, the past master who had a relationship with the Blue Blood sect, took care of him. In an instant, Lu Yi had already thought through most of the cause and effect of the matter. However, it was impossible for him to know that for the sake of fighting over him, Moon Thought Immortal had completely offended another Divine Sea Realm cultivator, and had even attacked him in public. Cultivators from the official department came and went frequently. They were all cultivators who had rushed back from various places. Like Lu Yi, they all had the same idea: to get promoted as soon as possible so that they could get more monthly pay. In the front line, military merits were often accumulated over time. The conflicts and battles with the Demon's Ridge weren't as frequent as expected. However, there were exceptions. The battles were extremely fierce. Both sides kept sending new people into the battlefield. In those places, military merits were increased, but there were also many people who died. After waiting for a moment in the official department, it was her turn. Lu Yi stepped forward and handed the guard token to the petite, round-faced female cultivator in charge of this matter. The female cultivator had promoted the ranks of countless cultivators every day, so she was naturally familiar with the process. She took the guard token and asked about Lu Yi's background. After checking the information in the guard token and confirming that there was no mistake, she asked Lu Yi to place the hand with the battlefield imprint on the battle merit plate to check how many battle merits he had accumulated. Just like last time, the colors on the battle merit plate constantly changed and the female cultivator's calm expression also changed. The light that came out was yellow, which corresponded to the Wei Wei. This time it was purple, which corresponded to the senior captain. It seemed that his calculations were correct. The military merits he accumulated were enough for him to get promoted. When he looked up, the beautiful eyes of the female cultivator who was handling this for him were filled with shock and admiration. In Grand Heaven Alliance, there were many cultivators with the rank of commandant. She had been handling military promotions here for a long time. Not to mention commandants, she had even seen some guards of higher ranks. But how could there be such a young commandant in this world? Because Lu Yi had been running around for a long time and had experienced many battles, he looked older than his actual age. But no matter how old he was only about 20 years old. A 20-year-old commandant, let alone seeing one, she had never even heard of one. And his cultivation was only at the First Order True Lake realm. Generally speaking, in order to be promoted to the rank of senior captain, one would have to be at the late stage of the true lake stage at the earliest. As for the ranks of army protector and battalion commander, they were all reserved for spirit ocean stage cultivators. There was no mention of any true lake stage general being promoted to the rank of army protector. Because for this rank, it was not only the amount of military merits accumulated, but also the amount of military merits. Perhaps a true lake realm cultivator could rely on his monthly salary to accumulate enough military merits. But if his military merits were not great enough, he would not be promoted to a guard or camp leader. A commandant who was not even 20 years old and was only at the first order true lake realm. The female cultivator had been here for so many years, but this was the first time she saw Lu Yi. It was inevitable that she was shocked and puzzled. She could not understand what Lu Yi had done to accumulate so many military merits. Senior sister? Lu Yi saw that she was in a daze and could not help but call out. The female cultivator came back to her senses and said apologetically, "I'll be done soon." Then she took Lu Ye's guard token and quickly returned it to him. "Junior brother Lu, check it and make sure there are no mistakes." Lu Yi took his guard token and poured his spirit energy into it. After confirming that the guard token was emitting a purple glow, he kept it and nodded to the female cultivator, "Thank you, senior sister." Under the shocked gazes of the nearby cultivators, he left leisurely. It wasn't until he left that the female cultivator revealed a vexed expression. Just now, she had been so shocked that she had forgotten to add her imprint to Lu Ye's. Such a handsome young talent, if she had some of the beautiful junior sisters in the sect come into contact with him more, perhaps she would be able to obtain some benefits. As for herself, she was already married and had someone to protect, so naturally she did not have any other thoughts. The sky was already dark, so Lu Yi did not plan to continue his journey. He took a day off from Yan Yuxian, and Yan Yuxian also told him not to rush back. Anyway, there was no war in Blue Flame Mountain Pass for a long time, so he could stay in Grand Sky City for a few more days, or even go back to Blue Blood Sect to take a look. Grand Sky City was not only the center of Grand Sky Alliance in the War Province, but there were also many restaurants, tea houses and even various shops in the city, mainly for the convenience of the cultivators who came and went. Moreover, the prices here were quite cheap, about half of what they were outside. Although Lu Yi did not come and go in a hurry last time, he was locked up in the prison for a few days, so he did not have the chance to walk around Grand Sky City. Now he could take advantage of the night to look around. Hoopa squatted on his shoulder, and the man and tiger walked around Grand Sky City at night. After a while, Lu Yi stopped in front of a shop that specialized in selling demonic beast meat. The two flood dragons in the War Merit Pavilion were big eaters, so Lu Yi spent 10 to 20,000 merit points each time he went in and out, so he might as well buy some demonic beast meat as backup. When he and Hoopa needed it, they could feed it to the two flood dragons. He rarely used spirit stones, so he had accumulated a lot in his storage space. After spending nearly 100,000 mid-grade spirit stones and almost emptying the stock of the shop, Lu Yi left with satisfaction, leaving the cultivator guarding the shop with a melancholic expression. He entered another restaurant, ordered a table of good dishes, sat by the window and ate heartily. After eating and drinking to his heart's content, he continued to stroll around, and when he passed by a spirit tool shop, he entered. The encounter during the day reminded him of one thing, and that was the mountain pan saber was recently upgrading, so he had to find another long saber to temporarily replace it. Although it wouldn't take long for the mountain pan saber to be completely repaired, if he needed to face an enemy during this period of time and didn't have a suitable weapon, it would be inconvenient for him to display his strength. The situation during the day was like that. If it wasn't for the sudden collapse of his long saber, his opponent wouldn't have been able to catch his breath. In the future, the mountain pan saber might not be by his side, so having a backup would be more than enough to deal with emergencies. However, he was now in the true lake stage, so spiritual weapons were no longer suitable for him, so he could only choose a magic weapon. Weapons of this grade were naturally not cheap. After a brief search in this spirit tool shop, he found a few magic tool long sabers. However, only one of them barely met his requirements. He spent another large sum of spirit stones to buy this saber. Compared to the mountain pan saber, this saber was more than sharp, but not heavy enough, so Lu Yi didn't feel comfortable using it. Moreover, the mountain pan saber had been with him for many years, and it was already imprinted with him, which was something that other weapons couldn't replace. Realistically speaking, even if this saber wasn't inferior to the mountain pan saber in terms of quality, Lu Yi could only display 90% of his usual strength. Weapon cultivators relied too much on their weapons, which was an undeniable disadvantage of weapon cultivators. After buying the demonic beast meat and the magic saber, Lu Yi didn't have the mood to continue shopping, afraid that he wouldn't be able to resist the urge to buy something. Although he had a lot of spoils of war, he couldn't afford to spend so extravagantly. He found an ownerless house nearby, opened the restrictions on the house and went in to rest. Yi could finally come out to take a breather. After a while, a man, a spirit and a tiger sat together. Lu Ye's heart moved, borrowing the power of heaven's secrets to cultivate, and at the same time, urging the talent tree to continuously devour the power of the fire spirit rock in his hand. The talent tree's transformation hadn't been completed, and he didn't know how much energy it needed to absorb. Anyway, as long as Lu Yi had the time, he would take out the fire spirit rock and let the talent tree devour it. After a peaceful night, Lu Yi got up, packed his things, opened the door and prepared to return to Tsangyan Mountain. However, just as he was about to move, a person descended from the sky and landed in front of him. The person who came was a tall and sturdy man with a full beard. He had a square face and looked very forthright. The two of them looked at each other. The sturdy man asked, "Junior brother, do you have any military duties?" Lu Yi shook his head, "No." The sturdy man showed his guard order to Lu Yi. "This one is from the Law Division's Law Enforcement Hall, A3 Squad Captain Gung Wuyu. We are temporarily recruiting Junior Brother to follow us on a mission. If Junior Brother doesn't have any military duties, you can't disobey orders." As he spoke, the sturdy man urged his guard order, which emitted a rich yellow light. At the same time, his spirit energy surged, revealing his powerful Ninth Order True Lake Realm cultivation. Lu Yi was stunned by his words, but he quickly reacted. Was he being recruited? But, was it possible to recruit him on a temporary basis? As if he had misunderstood something, King Gung Wuyu said, "Junior brother, don't worry. This mission isn't too risky and it won't take too long. At most it will take 3 to 5 days, so it won't take up too much of your time. Moreover, if you follow us on this mission, you will also be able to earn merits." Chapter 897. Lu Yi didn't care about the merit points. He still had a lot of merit points that he hadn't used up yet. Compared to merit points, he was more interested in the way the law enforcement hall did things. When he joined the military province guards, he didn't ask for too long, so he didn't know much about the military province guards. What made him curious was, did the military province guards allow this kind of temporary recruitment? And they didn't allow him to refuse. With that thought in mind, he said, "Senior Marshal Brother, please wait for a moment. I've only been in the War Province Guards for a month and I only took a day off to come to Vast Sky City. I still need to ask my superiors about this." King Jianghu frowned and asked, "Who are your superiors?" "Great Moon Pass's Lord, Nian Yuxian." King Gungwu was stunned. "It's her." "No, it said that there are no other prefecture guards on her side." "How did you?" "There weren't any more than a month ago." King Gungwu nodded slightly. "If it's her, you can ask your superiors." In other words, he trusted Nian Yuxian very much. If it was someone else, they might not be treated like this. Lu Yi then forced Wei Ling to contact the missing Moon Immortal and told her about what had happened. Soon he got a reply, "Yes." That was an agreement. Since his superior had agreed, Lu Yi had nothing to say and left with King Gungwu. On the other side, Nian Yuxian raised her hand and tapped on her battlefield imprint to send out a message. "What are you doing?" Soon she got a reply. "Senior Marshal Sister Nian, you're finally willing to contact me?" I thought, cut the crap. If you don't give me an explanation, I'll go to Great Sky City and break your skull. Search. Don't do that. I'm the head of the Law Enforcement Division. If you really do that, I'll lose face. The other party pleaded and then explained, "This brat under your command has been mixed up in the Spirit Stream battlefield and the Cloud River battlefield since the beginning of his cultivation, so it can be said that he knows nothing about the situation in the 9 provinces. After entering the regional guard, he still went to your place. What's the situation on your side is what you're thinking. If he stays there for a long time, he won't have many chances to gain merit or be promoted. I'm trying to think of a way to sharpen him and at the same time, let him understand more about the situation in the 9 provinces. It's said that good men aspire to travel far, and he can be considered a talent. You wouldn't want him to stay there and become a cripple, would you? Of course, if Senior Sister insists on raising him into a greenhouse flower, I can give the order to let him go right now." "Flowers in the greenhouse?" The thought Moon Immortal sneered inwardly. "I'm afraid you don't know what he has done before." In just 1 month since he came here, he accidentally stirred up the lonely mountain pass and saved my life under the noses of several hostile Spirit Sea Realm warriors. Even if he were a flower in a greenhouse, he would still be covered in thorns and thorns. Of course, there was no need to elaborate on such matters. If anything happens to him, I will wring your head off. In the main hall of the law department in Haotian City, Qian Wudong read the message from the Thought Moon Immortal and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This senior sister of his had been as cold as ice in recent years, but in fact, she had never restrained her fiery temper. She would break people's skulls and wring people's heads at the slightest provocation. Also, don't think that I don't know what you are up to. Another message came. What could I possibly be up to? Qian Wudong smiled bitterly in his mind. He knew that his thoughts had been seen through. But he didn't want to talk about it. Instead, he changed the topic. Why did this guy come back to the Haotian City? Go and ask him yourself. Thought Moon Immortal became a message and couldn't be contacted anymore. Qian Wudong was just asking casually, but the Thought Moon Immortal's attitude made him feel strange. Right, this guy had only been to the front line for a month. Why did he come back to the Haotian City? He didn't think too much about it before. After all, there were so many people coming and going in the Haotian City and no one restricted the True Lake from entering or leaving. Now that he thought about it, something was indeed wrong. He immediately asked someone to check it out. Soon he got the feedback. Looking at the information in front of him, Qian Wudong was stunned. A First Order Martial King Captain? Did the official division make a mistake, or did he see it wrong? If he remembered correctly, this guy used to be a guard. A Ninth Order Cloud River Realm guard was already shocking enough. How did he become a captain in just 1 month? The first thought that came to Qian Wudong's mind was that Thought Moon Immortal used her authority as a Mountain Pass Lord to open the door to True Lake, allowing him to accumulate a lot of war credits in a short time. But soon he denied this idea. It wasn't that Thought Moon Immortal couldn't do it, but that Thought Moon Immortal couldn't do it. She wouldn't do it without knowing the consequences. She would be punished by the heavens. Once that happened, even if she was a Spirit Sea Realm cultivator, she wouldn't be able to handle it. In other words, this guy used his own ability to accumulate a lot of war credits in a short time and was promoted from a guard to a captain. Did he kill Wanzhonggang or destroy Lonely Mountain City? But if that was the case, there should be some good news from the front line. Recently, there hadn't been any good news in Grand Sky City. Qian Wudong couldn't figure out what True Lake had done. His heart was itching, so he shamelessly sent a message to Thought Moon Immortal wanting to ask about it. But there was no response. No matter how he asked, there was no reply. At this time, True Lake had already met up with his A3 squad under the leadership of Gung Lingzhou. Including the captain Gung Lingzhou, there were only 5 people in the squad. A sword cultivator with a grumpy face and a warm smile on his face, Xiao Riyun. A taciturn spell cultivator with a cold expression, Sheng Wanqiu. Ghost cultivator Kong Yuanxiao with a cunning look in his eyes from time to time, constantly glancing at a female companion. A petite female cultivator with a curvaceous figure, Mu Zheng. Including True Lake, who joined temporarily, the squad of 6 people was gathered. This was also the standard number of people in the law enforcement team of the law enforcement hall. Among the 6, the captain Gung Lingzhou was undoubtedly the strongest. He was a 9th Order Martial King. In the entire 9 regions he wasn't weak. The others had different cultivations, but they were all above 3rd Order Martial King. Everyone reported their names and cultivations, then looked at True Lake together. True Lake could only say, True Lake of Jade Blood Sect, 1st Order Suing. If the name of True Lake of Jade Blood Sect was announced in the Cloud River battlefield, or even in the current Spirit Stream battlefield, it would definitely attract attention. But these people in front of him had long left the 2 major battlefields and were struggling on the front line. Naturally, they had never heard of True Lake's name. But the 3 words, Jade Blood Sect, made their expressions turn serious. Xiao Riyun was surprised. Junior brother is from Jade Blood Sect? Yes. True Lake looked at him. Senior brother Kong is from North Profound Sword Sect. Xiao Riyun shook his head. North Profound Sword Sect's requirements for accepting disciples are extremely strict. I wasn't lucky enough to be accepted. I'm from a 4th grade sect. Although the sword cultivators of North Profound Sword Sect are good, senior brother Kang's means may not be inferior to theirs. The ghost cultivator named Kong Yuanxiao said, Kid, don't think that a sword cultivator is from North Profound Sword Sect. All the big sects in the War Province have sword cultivators. He turned his head and looked at Gung's spirit boat. Captain, what's the situation? Even if you want to recruit strong men, you should recruit someone with a higher cultivation. This kid looks like he just became a martial king not long ago. How useful can he be? He was indeed a straightforward person. He did not care about Jianghu's cultivation level, so he directly said it out loud and did not try to hide it. You talk too much. So what if he's a first-order Suing? Didn't you come from first-order Suing? Gung's spirit boat glared at him. To be honest, if possible, he didn't want to choose True Lake. But this order was directly given by the minister, so he couldn't resist. He couldn't help but feel suspicious. He didn't hear that the minister had any close relationship with Jade Blood Sect. Why would he take care of this kid? In his opinion, this mission with them was to take care of them. Because it didn't take much effort to get a lot of war credits, adding a stroke to the merit book. Otherwise, although there weren't many cultivators in Grand Sky City, he wouldn't have found True Lake. I'm just saying. Kang Yuanxiao shrunk his neck and turned to the female cultivator next to him. Junior Sister Mu, after this mission, I'll take you to a fun place. Mu Jing smiled sweetly. I'm not going. Kang Yuanxiao immediately put on a sad look and pestered her. It was the first time True Lake saw a martial king like this. He couldn't help but frown. Xiao Ryun understood and smiled slightly. We brothers have been together for a long time and are used to being casual. Junior brother Lu, you don't have to worry about it. Well, everyone is here. Let's go. Gung's spirit boat said and summoned a land leaf. The land leaf was prepared for a small team. It was much narrower than True Lake's land leaf, enough to accommodate 7 or 8 people. Everyone boarded the boat. The silent Shengguan Qiu stepped forward and drove the land leaf into the sky. The others looked for a place to rest. Old Kong, tell the new little brother the rules. Gung's spirit boat ordered. Yes. Xiao Ryun replied and looked at True Lake. Junior brother, if you have anything to ask, you can ask me. Su Ying asked his question. When you law enforcement teams carry out missions, can you randomly recruit people in the city? Xiao Ryun smiled slightly. Junior brother, you don't know. Compared to the entire State Guard, the Law Division is the most understaffed. Because the Law Division recruits people at least at the Martial King realm. If your cultivation is low, you can't do anything about law enforcement. This was understandable. Cultivators who dared to violate the law must not have a low cultivation. This required the law enforcement team to use stronger methods to suppress them. Cloud River Realm cultivators were obviously not suitable. The mission carried out by the Law Division is to punish those who violate the laws of the State Guard internally and strangle enemies who betray their master externally. In the process of carrying out the mission, there will be many obstacles, so it's relatively safe. The casualty rate is also high. As a result, the Law Division is understaffed all year round. Our team is the same. Originally, there were 6 people, but in the previous mission, 1 brother died in battle, so there was an empty spot. This time, there is a mission, so we can only pull in strong men. This is also allowed. Chapter 898. There was one more thing that Kang Yuanxiao did not explain to Lu Yi, and that was that even though the Law Division was a powerful organization and no one dared to provoke them outside, the things they did were often unpleasant. Most cultivators were used to being free and unrestrained, and did not have any scruples in doing things. However, the law of the State Guards was like a mountain, and it was inevitable that someone would inadvertently violate the law of the State Guards. As a result, the Law Division needed to step in and deal with it. In the process of dealing with these matters, it was very easy to offend people, and then be feared and hated by others. This was also the reason why the Law Division feared the law. There were many cultivators in the war state, and even if the Law Division had strict requirements to recruit people, requiring at least the cultivation of the True Lake stage, they did not have many people. It was because many times the Law Division cultivators did things that offended people, and were not liked by others, so there were not many who were willing to join the Law Division. If they really wanted to gain merit, they could do it at any of the front lines. In addition to the high casualty rate, the Law Division's law enforcement team often had a shortage of people. Pulling in able-bodied men became an unspoken rule. Kang Yuanxiao spoke with a serious expression. Junior apprentice brother Lu, during the law enforcement team's mission, there are 3 things that are not allowed. Please remember, if you violate them, you will not be let off lightly. Senior apprentice brother, please speak. Lu Yi was all ears. First, you are not allowed to use your status as a law enforcement team member to do personal things. Second, during the mission without permission, you are not allowed to contact the outside world. Third, during the mission you are not allowed to act alone, and at least have to be in a group of 2. These 2 must be remembered. The sect leader nodded seriously. I will remember. The 3 uniformed beauties were also women and smiled slightly. Of course, junior apprentice brother need not be too relaxed. There is a first time for everything, just experience more and it will be fine. Ji Biao thought that he was not relaxed either, so he asked, "What mission are we doing this time?" Ji Biao Xiong smiled and shook his head. "Only the captain knows the details of the mission. We are only responsible for following orders." In the following time, the True Lake stage told the sect many things to pay attention to, and Biao Xiong 5 are rested. As for the others, they were all focused and ready to go all out. After saying everything that needed to be said to the sect, the True Lake stage cultivator took out an item and passed it to Ji Biao. "Little brother, take some time to refine this item." Zhong Shou took it and looked at it. He asked suspiciously, "Formation plate?" The thing in his hand looked similar to a disc array, but it didn't look like a disc array. Instead, it looked more like a Dharma artifact. However, if one were to call it a Dharma artifact, it seemed to lack something. 6 Origin Spirit Forbidding Locks. This is a spirit artifact unique to the Law Enforcement Division. It can't be found outside. When the time comes to carry out the mission, the 6 of us will need to split into 6 different directions and activate the power of this object. We will be able to restrict the flow of spiritual power in a certain area. As long as everything goes well, we will be able to take down the target effortlessly. The sect leader was enlightened. No wonder he felt that something was missing from this item. It turned out that this item came in a set. There were 6 pieces in a set and each of the 6 people had one. The principle of its operation was similar to that of a formation. It meant that each of the 6 people had this item and could set up a spirit forbidding array in a very short period of time. A cultivator's greatest reliance was the spiritual power that they cultivated. If their spiritual power was restricted, then their cultivation would not be able to be used. However, their physique was much stronger than a mortal's, which naturally made it easier for the Law Enforcement Division to carry out the mission. No wonder they needed to pull in a strong man. Because there were 6 of these items, they needed the cooperation of 6 people. Therefore, when the A3 team lacked a member, the Gung spirit vessel could only carefully pull in a dry person to make up the number. "Senior Marshal Brother, how high is the cultivation base of the person we need to deal with?" Zhong Shou's expression was solemn. The strength of this team was not weak, but they still needed to use this kind of magic artifact. Wouldn't the enemy they were about to encounter be very weak? The True Lake stage cultivator knew what Zhong Shou was thinking and comforted him. In particular, the cultivation base of the target we need to deal with is in Mafeng. Therefore, even if we face him head-on, we can still take him down. It's just that with this item in hand, it's more convenient to carry out the mission and avoid any unnecessary injuries. Zhong Shou then understood. "Junior Marshal Brother, refine it first. When you can activate the power of this item, I will teach you the cooperation method." "Thank you, Senior Marshal Brother." Refining the 6 Origin Spirit Restriction Locks was not a problem. Zhong Shou's spiritual power was pure enough. No matter what he refined, the efficiency was very high. In just half an hour, he had completely refined the 6 Origin Spirit Restriction Locks in his hand. He also asked Ji Biaoxiong for the cooperation method. Soon everything was ready. Lu Yi flew through the clouds. During this time, the Gung spirit vessel replaced Lu Ye's Shangguanqiu. It was not until the second day that they arrived at their destination. Lu Yi stopped. The 6 people walked out one by one and stood in the air. Looking at the capital gate, there were many pavilions and lofts in the second type of Shueishu law firm. It was obvious that the first department had been there for many years. Looking at it this way, the target of this mission should be someone from the Wei Lu. Immortal Dawn Mountain. The True Lake stage cultivator at the side was more knowledgeable. He immediately recognized that this was a Wei Lu called the Immortal Dawn Mountain. In the entire Jiuzhou, the Immortal Dawn Mountain was not very famous. However, in the military province, this Wei Lu was a little famous because it was a 4th rank Wei Lu. According to the Jiuzhou Qinji's evaluation of Ji Biao's rank, there were at least 20 Mo Fengs in the 4th rank Wei Lu. As for the Spirit Sea stage, there was definitely no one. This was because if the Immortal Dawn Mountain had a Spirit Sea stage cultivator, it would not be a 4th rank cultivator but a 3rd rank cultivator. To be able to send out an enforcement team of an Mo Fengs, it meant that the person they were going to deal with this time must be someone high up in the Immortal Dawn Mountain. It was very likely that it was an elder. As for who exactly it was, only the Gung spirit vessel would know. The only thing that the sect was curious about was why the target of this mission was targeted by the Law Division. Did he offend a martial king? Or was he a spy of the Wanmo Ridge? Go down. The Gung spirit vessel waved its hand. Everyone landed and silently passed through the mountain ridge. After walking for a while, they saw a straw hut. In front of the straw hut, An old man with a solemn expression was quietly waiting. He should have made an appointment with the Gung spirit vessel. The team led the way. Junior Gung. The old man cupped his fists. The Gung spirit vessel returned the salute. Kang Yuanxiao, long time no see. The old man was the sect master of the Immortal Dawn Mountain, sect master, and this time the A3 team came to the Immortal Dawn Mountain to capture someone. Naturally, they had to greet the sect master. Without his permission and cooperation, not to mention capturing someone, even entering the Immortal Dawn Mountain would be a problem. Ji Biaoxiong smiled bitterly. After so many years, Junior Gung is still as good as ever. Ji Biaoxiong is also old but strong. No, I can't reach the Spirit Sea stage in this life. But Junior Gung, if you work hard, there might be hope. The Gung spirit vessel's eyes flashed with a hint of sadness. He himself was unclear about his own talent. If he did not have a great opportunity in this life, he would stop at this point. From the True Lake stage to the Spirit Sea stage, the barrier between the True Lake stage and the Spirit Sea stage made many heroes cry. He, the Gung spirit vessel, was not an ordinary monster. How could he be an exception? Sweeping away the depression in his heart, Gung Zhibiao straightened his face. Let's not talk about other people's business. Kang Yuanxiao should know why we are here. Ji Biaoxiong's gaze swept across the 5 people behind the Gung spirit vessel. His expression became bitter. Who is it? How could Ji Biaoxiong not recognize the law enforcement team of the law department? It was precisely because he recognized them that his heart was bitter. Because after receiving the message from the Gung spirit vessel, he could not figure out who the Gung spirit vessel's target was. The few and Mofengs who stayed in the mountain were all of the older generation who had made great contributions to the Wei LV. How could such a person be targeted by the law department? If it was just offending King Wu, then it was fine. To be honest, most of the state guards had offended King Wu more or less, but the degree was different. King Wu was like a mountain, but the law was nothing more than human feelings. If it was just offending King Wu, it was not a big deal. He was only afraid that it was not the time to offend King Wu. The Gung spirit vessel did not make a sound. He just wriggled a few times at Ji Biaoxiong's mouth. Sect leader An's expression changed abruptly. How could it be him? He thought about the few Ji Biaoxiong who stayed behind to guard the mountain. The others might have offended King Wu, but it was impossible for this person to have done so. However, he never expected that the name inferred from the Gung spirit boat's mouth was actually this person's name. But if it was not Ji Biao, then Ji Biaoxiong suddenly felt a little creepy. What's the reason? Kang Yuanxiao should know the rules of the law department. Please don't ask more. The Gung spirit vessel's expression was impartial. Sigh. Ji Biaoxiong sighed heavily. If this old man said that this matter might be wrong, you shouldn't, the Gung spirit vessel interrupted him. Kang Yuanxiao, please don't take any chances. You should know the law department's style of doing things. For so many years, how many people who have been targeted by the law department are innocent? If there is no conclusive evidence, the law department will not make a big fuss. Because once the law department's people made a move, even if there was nothing, it would become a problem. It would be very difficult to ruin a person's reputation. Therefore, the law department's enforcement team would not make a move easily. But once they made a move, it meant that they already had conclusive evidence. Sect leader An's expression seemed to have aged a lot. He stood in the same place for a long time before he said, "Follow me." Thank you for your trouble, Kang Yuanxiao. The Gung spirit vessel's gaze was sharp. But Kang Yuanxiao, please consider the big picture. I know you have a close personal relationship with that person. But Kang Yuanxiao, don't forget that you are not only that person's friend, but also the sect leader of the Immortal Dawn Mountain. This old man knows. Sect leader An's expression was solemn. There is no need for junior brother to remind me. He turned around and led the way. They did not meet a single Immortal Dawn Mountain disciple. The entire Immortal Dawn Mountain did not seem to notice the sudden visit of a group of 6 people today. Until they walked for dozens of miles and approached the valley in front of the straw hut in the valley, the old man fishing in the lake shook his hand and the fishing rod fell into the water. He sighed heavily, his face was full of bitterness. What should come finally came. It was the last day of the month. There was nothing to do. He wanted to ask for monthly votes. Every month he could get almost 2,000 votes. Chapter 899. In the nameless valley of the Immortal Dawn Mountain, the lake was sparkling and a lone boat was drifting. An old man was fishing alone on the boat. His fishing rod was already in the water as if a big fish had taken the bait, dragging the fishing rod across the water. With King Gung Wu as the leader, the 6 members of the law enforcement team immediately surrounded the old man. At the same time, the team of 6 summoned the 6 origin spirit restriction chains. In an instant, the space around the old man was completely sealed. The sudden change caused the old man to let out a muffled groan and his figure to bend a bit. Lu Ye's position was behind the old man to the right. He looked up and saw that the old man was full of energy and had a thin body. This was the goal of this mission. From his appearance, one could not see anything special, but from the simple conversation between King Gung Wu and En Mafeng, Lu Yi knew that the old man was not as simple as he looked. The old man stood up and looked at En Mafeng, who was standing not far in front of him. He smiled and said, "Senior Marshal Brother, you're here?" And Mo Feng looked at this junior brother of his who had grown up with him, who had studied under his master, and who had made Immortal Dawn Mountain great and strong. His heart felt like it was being twisted by a knife. His dry lips moved, but not a single word came out. "You must be from the law enforcement team, right?" The old man looked at King Gung Wu and the others. They seemed to have accepted their fate. Not only did they not show any signs of resistance, they even had the mood to comment, "You're all good. It's good to be young." Of course, the main reason was that he couldn't resist. Under the 6 Origins Spirit Restriction Lock, all spiritual power was restricted. No matter how much the old man's cultivation level would be in the future, he was just a person without a physical body and could only display a little of his strength. "Search." Lu Yi snorted and took out a piece of golden silk paper. He opened it and shouted, "Immortal Dawn Mountain's young elder, King Gung Wu, original name Zhao Jing, from the Cloud region. 41 years later he snuck into the War region and changed his name. He was lucky enough to join the Immortal Dawn Mountain and hid until now. He tried to destroy the foundation of the War region. He is not guilty and will be arrested by the Law Enforcement Hall's 8 team. Sin 1, 78 years later, the next sect leader of the Immortal Dawn Mountain was assassinated by you when he was out on a mission. He died. Sin 7, 84 years later, during the small battle at the Heavy Cloud Pass, you ambushed and killed a few cultivators from the Grand Heaven Alliance. Sinner 8, 81 years later, at the 100 Battles Pass, you provided information to the enemy. In the end you lost several thousand men. Sin 7. Even though he had no guesses in his heart, when Gung Lui read out King Wu's crimes, Myriad Demon Ridge still staggered, and his face turned pale at a speed visible to the naked eye. He had never thought that this junior martial brother of his, whom he had spent decades with, would not have such a side to him. Every time Kong Lui read out a crime, Wan Mo Ling's expression became more and more aged. Sin 7. Forget it, I'm too lazy to recite it. Gung Lu Yi Wu impatiently put away the list of crimes in his hands and looked at King Wu fervently. "In short, King Wu, you've been exposed, take it." When the order was given, 2 dragon-binding ropes flew out from Shangguan Qiu and Mu Jing's hands. The dragon-binding ropes, which were at the level of a magic tool, were like spiritual snakes as they coiled around King Wu and tied him up firmly. The complexity of the mission was unexpected. Ling Qi originally thought that they would have to fight a battle on this trip, but they did not expect the other party to show no signs of resistance, allowing them to activate the power of the dragon-binding ropes and the dragon-binding ropes. Once they caught him, it was even more likely that the other party would stir up some trouble. In other words, the mission had basically been completed. All that was left was to bring Jin Jin back to Grand Sky City. As for how to deal with him, that was the matter of the prison. Just as Jin Jin was thinking this, he suddenly felt that something was wrong. In the dark, an inexplicable sense of danger surged in his heart. His expression turned cold and he secretly became vigilant. This kind of intuition was rarely accurate, but there were also times when it was a sign. Especially for Ling Qi, who had given birth to spiritual sense, this kind of intuition could easily be ignored. He suddenly realized that even though he knew that he had been exposed, King Wu had a reason to surrender. Even an ant would drag out its life, let alone a cultivator. He knew what would happen once he was caught. If Ling Qi was in his position, even if he knew that there would be no good in resisting, he would probably just sit and wait for death. Unless he wanted to live. But looking at King Wu's posture, did he even have the slightest intention of dying? Ning, who was imprisoned in his body, and his body was bound by 2 dragon-binding ropes. King Wu was still calm and composed. He looked at Gung Jin Jin and said, "Fellow Taoist, Dharma and logos are based on human feelings. Seeing that I am so cooperative, how about you let me say a few words to senior brother?" Gung Lu Yi frowned but finally nodded, "1 cup of tea." "Yes, it will take that long." King Wu smiled, then looked at Wan Mo Ling, whose face was completely pale. Senior brother, you must have nothing to ask. Wanemo Ling's heart was in a mess. He had a stomach full of questions but he did not know where to start. He subconsciously said, yes, yes, yes. What's wrong? Junior brother, do you want to explain to them? King Wu chuckled. Xuan, you were naive when you were young and you're still the same when you're old. Son, how can you lead the immortal mountain with a bow? You and I both know that the law department will make a small fuss. If they make a move, they must have solid evidence. Moreover, did senior brother hear what this fellow Taoist said just now? Is that so? Wanemo Ling clenched his fists and gritted his teeth. So, you're really in Mofeng's spy? King Wu sighed. Fate makes fools of people. The next sect leader was also killed by you? You've wronged me. I know where the law department got the information from, and I actually know some things that happened decades later. But at that time, the old sect leader was already seriously injured and had a long life ahead of him. I just sent him on his way. No matter what, the old sect leader taught me and he can be considered half a master. Although I'm in Mofeng's spy, I will still do such things. What about other things? You can consider it as doing it. Seeing that Wanemo Ling wanted to continue, he sighed and said, Senior brother, I don't have much time. Is this all you want to ask? Wanemo Ling was speechless. How could he know that he was asking nonsense? King Wu said, Senior brother, you're wasting your energy. I'm indeed in Mofeng's spy. Back then, before I stepped on the path of cultivation, I was sent here. Although I was forced, I still did something that didn't harm the Haotian Alliance. The law department is right to arrest me today. How can it be? Until now, Wanemo Ling still doesn't dare to doubt it. It's really hard for anyone to accept this. There are many spies like me in the Haotian Alliance who are Jinjinbin spies. Of course, the Haotian Alliance also placed a few spies on Mofeng's side. The two sides have been fighting for so long. Although I'm Mofeng's subordinate, I grew up cultivating in the Immortal Dawn Mountain. I've always thought of myself as a member of the Immortal Dawn Mountain. I've always thought of myself as a member of the Immortal Dawn Mountain. I've always thought of myself as a member of the Immortal Dawn Mountain. He looked into the distance leisurely. His eyes were simple. What a pity. It's time, Sect Masterin. We should go now. Gung Li shouted. Jin Jinbin was stunned. Obviously, this series of events had shaken his mind and made his thoughts chaotic. Seeing him like this, King Wu didn't feel any resentment. Before the old sect master died, the young elders recommended you to be the next sect master. I tried my best to stop it because, senior brother, you're suitable to be the sect master. Your mind is too difficult and was affected by the internal forces. Now it seems that it's true. Just a traitor has shaken your mind. If you encounter an even smaller matter, what will you do? What are the smaller things? Myriad Demons Ridge asked. For example, the danger of sect annihilation? King Wu looked at him with a deep gaze. At this moment, Ling Qi's heart was beating wildly. The sense of danger he sensed after that was extremely weak. Clang. The sound of a long saber being unsheathed alarmed everyone. When everyone's eyes focused, the saber in Ling Qi's hand had already ignited and he slashed it towards King Wu. This unforeseen event caused Gung Lu Yi and the others to be slightly shocked. Did Ji Ling Qi go crazy? Their mission this time was to capture people. As for how to deal with it, it was up to them to manage. Naturally, there was no need for the people of Vast Sky City to worry about it. If they killed someone now, they would have to explain themselves when they returned. Stop. As soon as Gung Lui's voice fell, his face changed. King Wu, who should not have been able to retaliate due to being bound in place, suddenly emitted a weak, intangible force that swept out in all directions. Just a moment ago, Gung Lui felt a pain in his head and saw stars. The others were even more unstable and fell into the lake. Divine sense. Gung Jinjin was a fourth-order true lake realm cultivator after all. Although he was suddenly attacked, he didn't immediately lose consciousness. Before he realized what had happened, he was shocked and angry. The target of this mission wasn't a true lake realm cultivator, but a hidden Spirit Sea realm cultivator. No one knew when he broke through to the Spirit Sea realm, or what method he used to hide such a young man. However, from the weak divine sense, the other party shouldn't have broken through to the Spirit Sea realm for a long time. His cultivation was at least a second-order Spirit Sea realm cultivator. The sudden change caught everyone off guard. Under the divine sense attack, 10,000 Demon Ridge and Gung Lu Yi were barely able to maintain their bodies. The others all fell back into the lake. The effect of the 8 origin spirit lock was instantly broken. Only the long saber in Ling Qi's hand fell to the side. It's him? King Wu showed a surprised look. In his perception, Ling Qi's cultivation was the highest among everyone present, a mere first-order true Lake Realm cultivator. But in this sudden change, Ling Qi's performance was the most eye-catching. He had even made a move before King Wu could do anything. And under his divine sense attack, this first-order true Lake Realm cultivator wasn't affected in the slightest. This was a strange thing. King Wu subconsciously thought that Jin must be from a top sect and was wearing some kind of treasure. Chapter 900. Lu Yi did not expect that his vigilance in times of peace would be confirmed so quickly. He had the golden lock given to him by Thought Moon Immortal around his neck. Outside his spirit sea, there were 2 flood dragon phantoms protecting him. Inside his spirit sea, there was the soul-suppressing pagoda. Not to mention a trivial second-order divine sea realm cultivator, even if he met Wanzhang, his soul would not be damaged. When Ninghu unleashed his divine will, Lu Yi could clearly feel that the golden lock on his neck had unleashed an invisible barrier, attempting to block the attack. Although it had some effect, it was not obvious. The invisible attack blasted towards Lu Ye's mind, but before it reached his spirit sea, it was blocked by the twin dragon sea guard. The soul-suppressing pagoda's spirit sea remained calm. The long saber also slashed down. Ninghu obviously did not expect such a thing to happen. When the law enforcement team arrived, he did not resist. It was not because he wanted to die, nor was it because he was willing to be captured. It was because he had something to rely on. If he was really a true Lake Realm cultivator, he would naturally have to submit under the 6 origin spirit lock and dragon binding ropes. But 8 years ago he had quietly reached the spirit sea realm, and now he was a second-order divine sea realm cultivator. The 6 origin spirit lock could restrict spirit energy, but it could not restrict divine sense. He could get rid of it at any time. He just wanted to say a few words to an Mo Feng before they completely fell out. That was why he was so cooperative. Everyone underestimated him, and he underestimated Sun Yi. But then again, who would have thought that a trivial first-order true Lake Realm cultivator would not be affected by the divine sense attack? One had to know that under the impact of his divine sense, even true Lake Realm 9th order cultivators like an Mo Feng and King Gungwu were stunned for a moment. Xiao Jing's enemy naturally had to pay the price. Ninghu's hastily condensed protective spiritual energy was not able to completely block Lu Ye's sharp blade. The blade landed on Ninghu's chest, leaving a wound. Blood splattered. Ninghu felt the pain and quickly broke free from the dragon binding ropes. Violent spirit energy surged as he threw a punch. This punch was indescribably fast. The thin old man's strength could make any true Lake Realm cultivator feel despair. In his field of vision, the shadow of the fist rapidly enlarged, covering the sky and hiding the earth. The aura of death swept over. Lu Ye's mind was unprecedentedly clear. The long saber in his hand slowly danced. As the long saber danced, it evolved into a mysterious saber aura. The flames on the blade soared. The twisting flames seemed to come alive, quickly forming a complex and profound pattern. Gecko. This was the spirit pattern that had made a great contribution in the battle with Wanzhang. Gekken shattered, and so did Lu Ye's hastily condensed defenses. The fist shadow bombarded the blade of the long blade, and then slammed into Lu Ye's body. With a muffled groan and the sound of bones breaking, Lu Yi flew out like a broken kite and fell into the lake. Ninghu was confused again. To be honest, in this short period of time, Lu Yi had given him too much shock. Not only had he not been affected by his divine sense attack, but he had even survived his punch. He could clearly feel the power of moon return. Under the effect of the mysterious spirit pattern, a portion of the power he blasted out was actually reflected back, weakening his attack once again. After that, Lu Yi seemed to have used some defensive techniques, which was why he was able to injure him but not kill him. Which sect's disciple was this? No wonder he was from a big sect. The immortal Dawn Mountain would never be able to cultivate such a talent. The fight between Lu Yi and Ning Guanyao only lasted for a short period of time, but it was this moment of delay that saved the lives of the others. Otherwise, with the situation just now, Ninghu could have killed everyone. When Lu Yi fell into the lake, and Mafeng and King Gungwu also regained their senses. And Mafeng's face was filled with grief. You're actually a spirit ocean cultivator. If there was a trace of hope in his heart before, then when Ninghu revealed his true cultivation, this trace of hope was shattered. If he was not a spy from the Myriad Devil Ridge, why would he hide his cultivation for such a long time? Moreover, Ninghu had admitted it himself. Sect leader and do it? King Gungwu shouted angrily. Blood qi and spiritual energy surged on the surface of his body. His whole body swelled up as he charged towards Ninghu. He did not expect that the target of his mission was actually a spirit ocean cultivator. This was beyond the scope of the A3 team. A spirit ocean cultivator was not someone they, a true lake cultivator, could take down. This time it would not bode well for them. Of course, he would not abandon his companions and flee. Moreover, in front of a spirit ocean cultivator, fleeing was unrealistic. The only thing he could do now was to combine his and Enmafeng's strength and see if they could kill Ninghu. You've misjudged me by relying on this useless senior martial brother. Ninghu's eyes became as sharp as an eagle's. If the Immortal Dawn Mountain had been handed over to me, it would have been promoted to the top 3 grades long ago. It would not have been wasted until now. As soon as he finished speaking, he met King Gungwu's fist with his own. The ghost fighting technique did not seem to be very effective. Under the fierce vibration, Ninghu's blood qi was accumulated. However, this was not the end. Ninghu grabbed King Gungwu's wrist and pulled him in front of him. His other fist was aimed at King Gungwu's chest. His movements were clean and agile. Obviously he was an experienced fighter. Boom, a loud sound was heard. Behind King Gungwu, Gao Gonglong stood up, and at the same time, a shockwave that could be seen with the naked eye exploded, and blood gushed out from his mouth. The huge difference in cultivation allowed Ninghu to crush King Gungwu, a true Lake Ninth Order cultivator, even without using his divine sense. Releasing his hand, King Gungwu's aura weakened and he fell into the lake. Ninghu turned around and looked at Nu Feng coldly. Sure Yuan, if you had joined forces with him just now, even if you could not defeat me, you could have stalled for a while. What are you hesitating for? Are you still going to be so naive? You're too disappointing. The Immortal Dawn Mountain will not have a good ending in your hands. If that's the case, why don't I destroy it first? Saying so, he rose into the sky and flew straight into the depths of the sect. Olden recalled what Ninghu had said before in his temper when he was young. He hurriedly chased after him. Stop. I'm afraid you're really the Thousand Demons Ridge's virgin. The sect has raised and taught you for so many years. You can't do this. You're still so stubborn. When will you? How long would it take for him to wake up? I'm going to fire sect now. You're talking to me about gay principles? If you have the ability, you can stop me. The two figures quickly disappeared into the distance. The peace of the place was broken. After they left, a group of embarrassed figures emerged from the lake. They were the members of Team A3. Under the impact of their divine sense, except for the strongest King Gungwu and Lu Yi, the rest fell into the water. It was only now that they regained their senses. They rushed out of the water and landed by the lakeside, coughing non-stop. Mu Zheng, who was the most meticulous, turned around and was shocked. Where's Captain and Lu Yi? There was no trace of them in the surroundings, but when they were underwater, they could clearly feel the movements of the experts fighting. When they looked at the floating boat, there was a pool of blood on the surface of the water. Captain, he wouldn't? Mu Zheng's eyes turned red. Kang Yuanxiao immediately stood up and was about to enter the water again. At this moment, with a splash, Hu Pe, who had returned to his true form, walked out of the lake with Lu Yi on his back and King Gungwu in his mouth. Captain? A few people exclaimed and rushed forward to check the situation. After checking, they found that King Gungwu was seriously injured and unconscious. Although Lu Yi was awake, he also looked injured. What should we do? Mu Zheng did not know what to do. She thought it was going to be an easy mission. Who would have thought that something like this would happen? 4 of the 6 people in the team died when the enemy turned hostile. It was embarrassing. Send a message back first. Kang Yuanxiao took out his guard token. It was not their fault that something like this happened. It was the fault of the person in charge of the intelligence department. In such a situation, they could only send a message quickly. The Grand Sky City would mobilize the nearby Divine Sea Realm experts to deal with this. But that would take time as well. Shrill screams and shouts came from not far away, accompanied by the aftermath of the fierce battle. It was obvious that Ninghu was killing people. His identity was exposed and he could no longer stay in the war province. But before he left, he wanted to do something else. The reason why he did not kill the 6 members of the enforcement team was not because he was merciful, but because he was afraid of the young law department. If he really killed all the members of the enforcement team here, even if he could escape back to the Myriad Devil Ridge, he would have to be on guard against the revenge of the law department. Once he was targeted by the law department, it would be difficult for him to have a good night's sleep. It's not a good place to stay. Let's go. Xiao Ruiyun's face was serious. Kang Yuanxiao shook his head slowly. If we leave like this, we can't report back. Why can't we report back? The mission information was wrong. Isn't it our fault to stay here and wait for death? If we join forces with the people from the Immortal Dawn Mountain, we might be able to take down Ninghu. A Divine Sea Realm cultivator was indeed powerful, but Ninghu was only a second-order Divine Sea Realm cultivator. The few of them were true Lake Realm cultivators, and there were still true Lake Realm cultivators from the Immortal Dawn Mountain. If they worked together, even if they could not take down Ninghu, they could at least stall him. But they would have to be prepared to die. I'm afraid it's too late now. Since Ninghu has already made his move, he will definitely target the true Lake Realm cultivators of the Immortal Dawn Mountain first. He didn't kill us before because he was afraid of the law department. If we really join in, do you think he will go easy on us? He can even kill his own fellow sect members. What can't he do? But our law department is responsible for maintaining stability within the sect and eliminating traitors from the outside. How can we just sit back and do nothing when we encounter such a thing? The two of them quarreled fiercely for a while. If King Jianghu was still awake, they would naturally listen to his orders. But King Jianghu was in a coma, and the team was like a group of dragons without a leader. In the new month, he continued to ask for votes. Chapter 901. Junior Brother Lu, what do you think? Sheng Guanxiu, who had been silent all this time, suddenly turned to look at Lu Yi, who was adjusting his chaotic spirit qi. The A3 team led by King Jianghu had their own strengths, and Sheng Guanxiu's was good at observation. Just now, they had experienced a great change and were attacked by the divine sense of a spirit sea realm cultivator. Others might not have paid much attention to it, but Sheng Guanxiu did not forget. Before Ninggu could reveal her true cultivation, this able-bodied junior apprentice brother, who had been temporarily pulled in, had already slashed out with his blade. This undoubtedly meant that he was extremely sensitive to the impending crisis, which was why he was able to attack before Ninggu. After all, Ninghu was a hidden spirit sea realm cultivator. Such keen senses could be said to be terrifying. In this situation, it was not wrong to ask Lu Ye's opinion. You can't judge a book by its cover. Sheng Guanxiu would never underestimate others just because of their low cultivation. Just as King Jianghu said before, who didn't start from the first order true lake realm? What's the point of asking him? Xiao Ruiyun said impatiently, he's just a first order true lake realm cultivator. Maybe he hasn't even seen a real battlefield. In this situation, it's better to retreat quickly. Sheng Guanxiu glanced at him. If Captain is awake, he probably won't make this choice. But Captain is already unconscious, and Captain will never joke about our lives. Amidst the noise, Lu Yi suddenly stood up with his long saber and took a few deep breaths. His chest and abdomen were aching, but other than that he was fine. It didn't affect his strength at all. He waved his hand, and Hooper immediately turned into the size of a cat and jumped onto his shoulder. Junior Brother Lu. Kang Yuanxiao looked at him in shock, and the others also looked over. Lu Yi looked in the direction of the screams and fighting sounds and said slowly, I don't know what you're going to do when you encounter this kind of situation, but I've suffered a loss, so I naturally have to pay for it. If the opportunity is right, I'll pay for it now, immediately. Everyone was stunned. Naturally, they could see Lu Ye's intention to intervene in the affairs of the Immortal Dawn Mountain. Even Kang Yuanxiao, who suggested joining forces with the true Lake Realm cultivators of the Immortal Dawn Mountain, couldn't help but be stunned. He didn't know where Lu Yi got his courage from. If he went there, he would be facing a warrior at the Spirit Sea Realm. A true lake cultivator naturally had no chance of winning against a god ocean cultivator. Just the suppression of spiritual will alone was enough to consign a true lake cultivator to eternal damnation. But coincidentally, Lu Yi had a rare treasure that could be used to deal with divine sea realm warriors. Thanks to the past master, after the Battle of Lonely Mountain City, Lu Yi had asked Tianji to reward him with a huge amount of battle merits, which gave him enough capital to buy that rare treasure from the War Merit Pavilion. Originally, he just wanted to be safe so that he would be able to fight back when he encountered a warrior of the Spirit Sea Realm again. He didn't expect that it would come in handy so soon. Moreover, Lu Yi had received help from many cultivators of the Grand Heaven Alliance that he didn't know. Especially when his identity as a disciple of the Jade Blood sect was exposed at the Spirit Stream battlefield, there were many cultivators of the Grand Heaven Alliance that he didn't know. That was why he was able to reach the top of the Golden Light and hold on until eldest senior sister and fourth senior brother arrived. After that, at the Spirit Stream battlefield and the Cloud River battlefield, he had also received help from some cultivators of the Grand Heaven Alliance that he didn't know. Perhaps some of them were from the Immortal Dawn Mountain. Now that the Immortal Dawn Mountain was about to be exterminated, it was fine if Lu Yi didn't have the ability to stop it. But since there was a chance, he had to try. Kid, don't mess around. With your insignificant cultivation, you're just going to die. Xiao Ruiyun shouted. Lu Yi turned a deaf ear to him and strode forward. A figure flashed in front of him. Xiao Ruiyun stood in front of him and looked at him firmly. We brought you out, so we have the responsibility to bring you back. Don't go any further. Seeing that Lu Yi didn't stop, Xiao Ruiyun gritted his teeth and raised his guard token, shouting, I order you as the guard token of the military province. Now immediately go back. With that, he channeled power into the guard token in his hand. The guard token released a dense yellow light. Lu Yi looked at the guard token in his hand and muttered to himself in silence. Xiao Ruiyun said, I don't care which pass you're from, but according to the military province's guard law, if there's an emergency, the one with the highest military rank has the right to command. Even if you're new to the province guard, you should have heard of this law. There was indeed such a rule in the guard law. Normally, the rank of the soldier was only the standard for the amount of salary a cultivator received each month. It also only had effect within the same pass. For example, if Lu Yi was in the Ash Flame Mountain Pass, then within this pass he could mobilize and command all the province guards with lower military ranks than him, no matter how high their cultivation was. Of course, right now the Ash Flame Mountain Pass only had him and Thought Moon immortal, so he couldn't command anyone else. Once he left the pass, his military rank might not necessarily be in charge. This was also a law set to prevent cultivators with high military ranks from abusing their power. However, in an emergency like the one before him, the military rank determined the size of the right to speak. Lu Yi didn't think of using his military rank to pressure others. His cultivation was right there, so what was the use of having a high military rank? It was better to not do things that were difficult to convince others. Moreover, he and the people of Team A3 had only met by chance and were pulled in to carry out the mission together. They didn't know each other that well, so he didn't want the others to help him and prepared to go alone. Because he himself didn't know how useful that strange treasure would be. If it was really useful, perhaps it could resolve the danger of the Immortal Dawn Mountain. If it was useless, then he would have to retreat. However, the other party held the guard token in front of him, so Lu Yi had no choice but to respond. He untied the guard token at his waist and waved it at Xiao Ruiyun. I'm afraid you can't order me around. The sudden burst of purple light almost blinded Xiao Ruiyun's eyes. Kang Yuanxiao and the others also stared at Lu Yi's back in a daze, their hearts in turmoil. It wasn't until Lu Yi soared into the sky and flew towards the depths of the Immortal Dawn Mountain that Mu Zheng exclaimed, Captain? The few of them were all captains. It wasn't that their cultivation wasn't high enough, but that they didn't have enough battle merits. Only their captain, who had stayed in the True Lake stage for a longer time, was given the rank of captain. However, their captain, King Gung Wu, was in the True Lake stage 9th order, while Lu Yi was only in the 1st order. Xiao Ruiyun originally wanted to use his military rank to order Lu Yi to retreat, but he didn't expect Lu Yi's military rank to be one level higher than his. How could he order him around? Lu Yi already gave him a lot of face by not ordering him to follow along. Captain is awake. A low shout was heard. Everyone didn't have time to be shocked by Lu Yi's captain anymore and gathered around King Gung Wu. At this time, the square of the Immortal Dawn Mountain's main peak was covered in blood and corpses. Surprisingly, Ning Hu had already started his massacre. There were more than 20 True Lake stage cultivators in the Immortal Dawn Mountain. It could be said that their foundation was quite good, but most of them weren't in the sect. They were either working for the state guards or wandering outside for other reasons. There were only 7 True Lake stage cultivators in the sect, including an Mo Feng and Ning Hu. At this moment, 3 of them were already dead. Their bodies were covered in blood and it was unknown whether they were dead or alive. The remaining few, including an Mo Feng, were all injured. Obviously, they had just fought a fierce battle with Ning Hu. When Lu Yi arrived, he saw many cultivators of the Immortal Dawn Mountain looking at Ning Hu with anger and shock. Ning Hu was also carrying a young man who was only in the 3rd Order Cloud River realm. The young man was about the same age as Lu Yi. To have such a cultivation at such a young age, his talent was obviously extraordinary. In a 4th grade sect like the Immortal Dawn Mountain, he would definitely be the future mainstay of the sect. The impression that Ning Gu gave to everyone in the Immortal Dawn Mountain was one of benevolence and warmth. The lake that he cultivated in seclusion was a place that anyone could enter. Many disciples would seek advice from him when they met with difficulties in cultivation. Thus, when he suddenly revealed a side that no one knew about, not only were the normal disciples unable to accept it, even the true lake stage elders were unable to accept it. The contrast was too big. However, there were at least a few dozen corpses all over the square. It was clear that Ninghu was a spy of the 10,000 demon rich. When Lu Yi hurried over, Ninggu turned to look at him. There was a hint of envy in his eyes. Everything was afraid of comparison. The young man in his hand was about the same age as the young man from the law department, but their cultivation and temperament were completely different. Why couldn't the immortal Dawn Mountain cultivate such an outstanding disciple when others had one? However, his goal wasn't Lu Yi, so he didn't pay much attention to him after a glance. A first-order true lake stage cultivator couldn't change the current situation. At the same time, Lu Yi also had doubts in his heart. Why didn't Ninghu escape? His identity had been exposed and he had admitted it. Logically speaking, he could have escaped quickly. Otherwise, once the law department mobilized the nearby Spirit Sea stage cultivators, he wouldn't be able to escape even if he wanted to. Not only did he not escape, but he also came here to start a massacre? What was his intention? If it was as he said, it would take him a lot of time to destroy the immortal Dawn Mountain by himself, even if he could do it. As his thoughts raced, Lu Yi noticed something. Ninghu didn't want to leave here alive. Even if he escaped, he wouldn't be able to escape the sphere of influence of the War Province's Grand Heaven Alliance. As for his real purpose, Lu Yi didn't know. A young man who was sent here by the 10,000 Demon Ridge and hid for nearly 100 years had his roots in the 10,000 Demon Ridge, but his cultivation was all in the immortal Dawn Mountain. Whether he was from the 10,000 Demon Ridge or the Grand Heaven Alliance, who could say for sure? At this moment, the sound of something breaking through the air came from behind. Lu Yi turned around and saw King Gungwu and the others from the A3 squad rushing over. Seeing that Lu Yi was unharmed, King Gungwu let out a long sigh of relief. The other members didn't know Lu Ye's background. They only thought that he was a man that King Gungwu randomly picked on the street. Although King Gungwu wasn't too sure, he was still the person chosen by the Division Lord. If anything happened to him, it would be difficult to explain to the Division Lord. Chapter 902. Seeing that Lu Yi was unharmed, King Gungwu heaved a sigh of relief. No wonder he was chosen by the sect leader. In such a situation he actually dared to come here alone. Not to mention other things, just this courage alone was enough to surpass the other members of his team. Senior Gung, Lu Yi called out softly. King Gungwu nodded. He looked at the situation and frowned. He had the same question as Lu Yi. Why didn't Ninggu escape? Before he could figure it out, he heard Ninggu yelling, Senior Gung, can't you see through the situation? Blood flowed from the corner of Enmofeng's mouth. He covered his chest with his hand and said, no matter what, let Ziyen go first. You watched him grow up. The young cultivator called Ziyen, who was being held in Ninggu's hand, said with difficulty, Grand Elder, please spare my life. Ninggu shook his head slowly and looked at Enmofeng bitterly. Senior Gung, you disappoint me. Our talents were similar in the past, but now I'm at the Divine Ocean level. What about you? You're still stuck at the True Lake level. You used more cultivation resources in the sect, but now I'm at a higher level. Do you know why? Enmofeng sighed. The old sect leader once said that in terms of talent, you're better than me. Bullshit. Ninggu shouted angrily. That old thing's eyesight is bad. He can't even see that I'm a spy from the Myriad Demon's Ridge. What else can he see? Today I'll tell you why I can reach the Divine Ocean level but you can't. As he spoke, he took a step forward. It's because you've always placed your hopes on others. You've never thought of fighting for yourself. Generation after generation, you've always been able to reach the Divine Ocean level. You made the leading immortal Changshanpu rise to the ranks of the 3rd rank. You are one, your teeth are overboard. It is better to rely on yourself than on others. Don't forget that you're the sect leader of the immortal Dawn Mountain. Enmofeng was slightly dazed by Ninggu's loud roar. He thought back to the past few decades and realized that what Ninggu said was true. After realizing that he wouldn't be able to step into the Divine Sea realm for a long time, he had placed all his hopes on the disciples below him, losing all will to struggle and strive. Ninghu continued, in the last generation, you placed all your hopes on that little brat surnamed Zhong, but in the end he died just after breaking through to the Cloud River realm. In this generation you have placed all your hopes on Ziyen. His luck is better than that little brat surnamed Zhong's and he is now a 3rd-order Cloud River realm cultivator, but how can you guarantee that he won't die prematurely? So what if he managed to cultivate all the way to the True Lake 9th order? Can you guarantee that he can ascend to the divine sea? I can do it, great elder. The young man called Ziyan shouted. I can definitely do it. No one can be certain about the future. He tightened his grip and Ziyan couldn't make a sound. He looked up at Enmafeng and said, Senior brother, you have the potential to reach the divine sea realm. It's just that your temperament and spirit have been destroyed. Enmafeng sighed. What's the point of saying all this now? Of course. Ninghu suddenly laughed. Enmafeng suddenly realized that something was wrong and asked in surprise, What are you going to do? Cut off the expectations and thoughts in your heart. You can only rely on yourself. As soon as he finished speaking, Ninghu tightened his grip and with a cracking sound, Ziyan's neck was crushed. The light in his eyes quickly dimmed. Although Ninghu had gone on a killing spree and killed dozens of people, no one had expected that he would really kill Ziyan. Because in the past, the relationship between the grandfather and grandson was very good. Ziyan could be said to have watched Ninghu grow up and taught him. Ninghu could be considered half his master. Even so, Ninghu had killed Ziyan without hesitation. His ruthlessness was shocking. Ninghu threw Ziyan's body aside like a rag and shouted, Senior brother, whether you can protect the immortal Dawn Mountain or not depends on yourself. You have to hurry. As soon as he finished speaking, he rushed towards the place where the crowd was the densest. How could the immortal Dawn Mountain disciples resist when a spirit sea realm cultivator attacked so unscrupulously? In an instant many of them died. Stop. A few injured elders beside Enmafeng were furious. They no longer cared about the difference in strength between them and rushed towards Ninghu to stop him. Enmafeng himself seemed to be dumbfounded. He stood there with his eyes filled with confusion and confusion. Stop him. On the other side, almost as soon as Ninghu attacked, King Gungwu ordered and rushed out. The rest of the team followed closely behind and joined the battle. In an instant, a great battle broke out and spirit energy surged. Including the True Lake Realm elders and the members of Team A3, there were 8 True Lake Realm cultivators present. King Gungwu was a True Lake Realm 9th Order cultivator. With such a lineup they could barely fight against Ninghu. But they were still not his match. The gap of a great realm was extremely terrifying. So, even though Lu Ye's team had the advantage in numbers, they were still at a disadvantage. Fortunately, the members of Team A3 cooperated well, so there were no casualties. Especially King Gungwu, who was the strongest among them. He used all his strength and restrained 30% of Ninghu's energy by himself. Lu Yi did not have the tacit understanding of Team A3, so he tried his best not to disrupt their cooperation. In addition, his cultivation was the lowest, so he had been wandering around since the beginning of the battle. It was not that he cherished his life, but he was waiting for an opportunity. An opportunity to use the treasure in his hand. Ninghu did not use his divine sense. It was not that he could not, but even as a spirit sea realm cultivator, using his divine sense consumed a lot of spirit energy. Especially since he was only a 2nd Order spirit sea realm cultivator, he naturally would not rashly use his trump card. This gave the others a chance to entangle him. But the battle could not continue like this. In less than half a cup of tea's time, the 2 True Lake Realm elders of Immortal Dawn Mountain had fallen to the ground one after another. It was unknown whether they were dead or alive. On Team A3's side, King Gungwu was bleeding from his 7 orifices. Kong was suffering from the backlash of his technique, so the spirit energy in his body was in chaos. It was difficult for him to do anything. Mu Zheng, the female cultivator, was even worse. Besides Lu Yi, her cultivation was the lowest in the team. Just now, she was caught off guard and was punched in the stomach by Ninghu. She was sent flying 20 feet away. At this moment, she was leaning against a wall and constantly coughing up blood. Obviously, she did not have any energy left to fight. On the contrary, Lu Yi, who had the lowest cultivation, was in the best condition. First, he had been wandering around the periphery, not giving Ninghu a chance to seriously injure him. Second, with the help of Returning Moon and the defensive spirit rune, he could at least protect himself from the aftermath of the battle. The opportunity he had been waiting for did not come, but his team was about to collapse first. Once King Gungwu and the others were seriously injured and unable to fight back, everyone could only wait for death. Captain, if the people from the Law Division don't come, I'm afraid I'll have to go first. Xiao Ruiyun roared as he struggled to defend against Ninghu's frenzied attacks. Suddenly, a crisp sound came from his arm. It was his arm bone that was broken. Although he had advocated for an immediate retreat and even used the guard token to stop Lu Yi when he moved, he did not hesitate to use the guard token. However, when it came to the real battle, he was not careless at all. There were a few times when he blocked the aftermath of Lu Ye's attacks. "Hold on a little longer, they are on their way," King Gungwu replied. As if King Gungwu's words made Ninghu feel a sense of danger, he frowned and no longer wanted to continue the battle. In the next moment, his divine sense surged and turned into an invisible force that blasted towards King Gungwu. At the moment when he used his divine sense to attack, Lu Yi, who had been waiting for a long time, also activated his divine sense at the same time. An almost transparent small sword without a handle shot out from his hand. Deity Vanquishing Sword. This was a rare treasure that cost Lu Yi 26,000 battle points. It was the reason why he dared to fight against Ninghu. The Deity Vanquishing Sword was meant to vanquish one's divine sense. He did not know how powerful this rare treasure was. In addition, there was a huge gap between his cultivation level and Ninghu's. Therefore, he did not dare to use it recklessly and had been waiting. He was waiting for the moment when Ninghu activated his divine sense. The Deity Vanquishing Sword turned into a sharp ray of light and arrived in front of Ninghu in an instant, breaking his divine sense attack. Ninghu could not help but let out a muffled groan. This was the danger of a battle between divine sense cultivators. Although divine sense cultivators were born in the divine sea realm, they would not activate their divine sense attacks easily because it would give their enemies an opportunity to attack. Ninghu did not expect that the weakest cultivator present would have a way to deal with him. In a moment of carelessness, his divine sense was broken and he felt a sharp pain in his head. Originally, his divine sense attack was aimed at King Gungwu. If he had used it fully, King Gungwu would have been stunned and his life would be in danger. However, after his divine sense was broken, King Gungwu only felt a slight dizziness in his head and then he was fine. On the other hand, Ninghu endured the pain of his divine sense being broken and raised his hand to catch the Deity Vanquishing Sword. Seeing this, Lu Ye's heart sank. This was the weapon he relied on to deal with divine sea realm cultivators. He had spent 26,000 battle points to exchange for this rare treasure from the War Merit Pavilion. He had high hopes for it, but it turned out like this. Just when he thought that the Deity Vanquishing Sword did not live up to its name, the rare treasure that he caught suddenly slashed out a small ray of sword light. The ray of sword light cut into Ninghu's forehead, but it did not cause any harm to him. Instead, it disappeared the moment it came into contact with him. However, Ninghu felt as if he was hit by a hammer. His head jerked back and his body staggered backward. He could not help but let go of the Deity Vanquishing Sword. At the same time, he let go of the Deity Vanquishing Sword and let out a miserable scream. The sudden change of events confused everyone. However, they knew that it must be the work of Lu Ye's rare treasure. King Gungwu was extremely good at grasping opportunities. Almost at the same time Ninghu retreated, King Gungwu rushed forward and punched out with both of his fists. There was a loud boom, Ninghu's skinny body flew out and he spat out blood in the air. Rays of sword light chased after Ninghu. It was Kang Yuanxiao's flying sword. Lu Yi also raised his saber and stabbed out with the starry sky sword. Brother Shen. Shen Zhangqing walked on the road. When he met someone he knew, he would greet them or nod his head. But no matter who it was, everyone's face was expressionless. It was as if they were indifferent to everything. To this, Shen Zhangqing was already used to it. This was the Demon Suppression Department, an organization that maintained the stability of the Great Qin Empire. Their main job was to kill demons and monsters. Of course, they also had other side jobs. Could be said that, in the Demon Suppression Department, everyone's hands were stained with blood. When a person was used to life and death, they would become indifferent to many things. When Shen Zhangqing first came to this world he was not used to it. But as time passed he got used to it. The Demon Suppression Department was huge. Those who could stay in the Demon Suppression Department were all powerful experts or people who had the potential to become experts. Shen Zhangqing belonged to the latter. The Demon Suppression Department was divided into two professions. One was the Guardian and the other was the Demon Slayer. Anyone who entered the Demon Suppression Department would start from the lowest level, the Demon Slayer. Then they would advance step by step until they finally had a chance to become a Guardian. Shen Zhangqing's previous life was a Demon Slayer trainee in the Demon Suppression Department. He was also the lowest level Demon Slayer trainee. He had the memories of his previous life. He was also very familiar with the environment of the Demon Suppression Department. It did not take long for Shen Zhangqing to stop in front of a loft. Unlike the other places in the Demon Suppression Department that were filled with killing intent, this loft was like a crane in a flock of chickens. In the Demon Suppression Department that was filled with blood, it presented a different kind of tranquility. At this moment, the loft's door was open. Occasionally people would enter and leave. Shen Zhangqing only hesitated for a moment before stepping in. He entered the loft. The environment suddenly changed. A faint smell of ink mixed with a faint smell of blood wafted over. His brows instinctively furrowed, but they quickly smoothed out. The smell of blood on everyone in the demon suppression department was almost impossible to clean. Chapter 903. When the attack stopped, Ninghu's hair was disheveled and his body was like a broken sieve, bleeding profusely. He was caught off guard by the attack of the rare treasure, which caused him to suffer greatly. However, he was still alive. Not only that, but the pain in his soul made his counterattack even more violent. If Ninghu was crazy before, he still had his own thoughts. Now he was like a madman. Fortunately, his soul was damaged and his mind was in a mess. Therefore, although his attacks were fierce, they did not have a clear goal. King Gengwu was scared out of his wits as he fought with Ninghu. Even Kang Yuanxiao's flying sword was not enough to support Ninghu. Ninghu had lost his biggest advantage in the Spirit Sea realm after his spiritual will was broken. However, his cultivation of spiritual power was still there. It was not easy to defeat someone like him. Senior brother Geng, dodge. Lu Yi roared and something appeared in his hand. He raised his hand and threw it at Ninghu. King Gengwu reacted quickly. Although it was the first time he worked with Lu Yi to kill an enemy, he had great trust in Lu Yi. Almost as soon as Lu Yi opened his mouth, King Gengwu retreated. Boom! A loud sound was heard. In the midst of the flames, the impact of the explosion and the scorching heat wave drowned Ninghu. King Gengwu, who had retreated not far away, saw this scene and his eyelids twitched. He was glad that he dodged quickly. If he was a little slower, he would have been engulfed. Although this kind of power would not kill him, it was enough to make him lose face. What is this? When King Gengwu turned his head to look, he saw Lu Ye's hands clasping onto another item that exploded just now. King Gengwu was at a loss as he realized that those items were just spirit stones, the fire spirit stones of the 5 elemental spirit stones. Bao King Gengwu knew that the fire attribute spiritual energy within the fire spirit stone was violent and unstable. Therefore, he had to be careful when handling the fire spirit stone because the fire attribute spiritual energy within it could dissipate if it were to be touched. He had never heard of this kind of thing exploding. Moreover, its power was not bad. It was almost equivalent to the full-strength attack of a true Lake Realm cultivator. Boom boom boom. Lu Yi kept throwing out the fire stones, which were branded with explosive inscriptions, one after another, turning them into balls of scorching flames that wrapped around Ninghu's body. Normally, such an attack would not work because a warrior at the Spirit Sea realm would not stand there and take his attack like a fool. But Ninghu's divine will was broken, and his head was hurting. His mind was in a mess and he could only rely on his instincts. There was no way he could avoid such an attack. Fire spiritual stone and explosion spiritual tattoo were the means of fighting against the enemy. Some killing weapons found by Lu Yi in the underground karst cave should be refined by the Fire Spirit clan. Although the patterns on them were not exactly the same as the explosion spiritual tattoo, it was enough to inspire a real spiritual tattooist. This was the first time Lu Yi had used such a method against an enemy, and it was against a Spirit Sea realm warrior. The effect was surprisingly good. The sound of explosions rang out continuously. Kang Wuwang thought that these things had been specially refined, but in reality, Lu Yi had only imprinted explosive spirit patterns on the fire spirit stones the moment he took them out and then tossed them out. While taking out the fire spirit rock, Lu Yi secretly activated his divine sense to check Ninghu's condition. He was startled. Ninghu still had some vitality in him. He wasn't dead yet. Lu Yi could not help but exclaim that Ninghu was a Spirit Sea realm warrior after all. As Jihao prepared to keep attacking like this to wear Ninghu to death, Ninghu suddenly pounced on Jihao from the raging fire. At this moment, Ninghu could only follow his instinct. Killing Lu Yi was his instinct to protect himself. The only thought he had left was that if he didn't kill Lu Yi, he would die soon. Oh no! King Gengwu thought that the battle was over. Seeing Ninghu's actions, he was shocked and wanted to stop him. 6 Origin Spirit Lock. Lu Yi roared. Ninghu's divine will had been broken, and he could not use his divine will to attack like before. Therefore, as long as he could take him down with the 6 Origin Spirit Lock, he would be able to win. But before that, he had to think of a way to stay alive in front of the furious Ninghu. He continued to throw out the fire spirit rock. Along with the powerful impact, it still could not stop a Spirit Sea realm warrior. King Gengwu blocked Lu Ye's path and delayed him for a while. Lu Yi quickly took out formation flags and threw them in all directions. At the same time he activated his spiritual energy to connect the formation flags, and a core spiritual inscription appeared on them. King Gungwu was sent flying. Ninghu pounced on Lu Yi like a cheetah pouncing on its prey. Before he arrived he had already clawed at Lu Yi. As Lu Yi slashed forward with his saber, he borrowed the force of the attack to retreat. Ninghu landed on the ground. However, before he could launch a second attack, Lu Yi had already activated the power of the formation. Suddenly, a visible light curtain rose and turned into a transparent semicircle, trapping Ninghu inside. Ninghu pounced but was stopped by the light curtain. He was so angry that he roared like an injured beast. His frenzied attacks made the light curtain of the trapping formation dim at a speed visible to the naked eye. The great saint of human Tao, domain name such a trapping formation could only trap him for a second. Many figures landed in all directions. They were the members of the A3 team. It was the same as when they first saw Ninghu on the lake. Everyone was injured and a few of them had lost the ability to fight. However, they had no problem using their 6 origin spirit lock. Almost at the moment when Lu Ye's trapping formation was broken, the 6 origin spirit lock came into effect. In an instant, Lu Ye's spiritual energy was sealed. Ninghu, who had finally reached Lu Yi, was kicked back. With his divine will broken and his spiritual energy sealed, Ninghu's physical body, which had been cultivating for his whole life, was limited. Naturally he could not block Lu Ye's kick. Just as he flew into the air, 2 dragon binding ropes were released. When he landed he was tied up like a dumpling. Saber. King Gungwu stretched out his hand to Lu Yi. Lu Yi understood tacitly and tossed his magic tool long saber over. King Gungwu strode forward and arrived in front of Ninghu in a flash. He stabbed his Dharma weapon into Ninghu's heart. The original mission for this trip was to bring Ninghu back to Grand Sky City alive, but many unforeseen events had occurred, and the target of the mission had changed from a true Lake Realm 9th Order to a 2nd Order Divine Sea Realm. Naturally they couldn't leave him alive. Who knew what would happen next? If Ninghu managed to break free again, all their previous efforts would be in vain. Facing such a situation they could only kill him to prevent future troubles. As the long saber pierced through his body, Ninghu, who was struggling madly, felt as if he was struck by a lightning talisman. He instinctively smashed his head into King Gungwu's head. King Gungwu staggered back and pulled out his Dharma weapon. Blood gushed out from Ninghu's heart like a fountain. Maybe it was the final radiance of the setting sun, or maybe it was the headbutt that gave him a brief moment of clarity. He raised his eyes and looked at an Mo Feng, who had been standing there since the beginning of the battle as if he had lost his mind. A look of disappointment flashed across his cloudy eyes. He slowly turned his head and took one last look at the scenery that had accompanied him for decades. He sighed, "The foundation of our ancestors for hundreds of years is going to be ruined in the end." Then he looked at Lu Yi and nodded slightly, "You're good." As soon as he finished speaking he fell on his back and died. The whole place was silent. Only the sound of heavy breathing could be heard. "Captain, is he dead?" After a long time Xiao Ruiyun asked with a pale face. His spiritual energy was in a mess and he could barely maintain his 6 origin spirit lock. King Gungwu turned his head and spat out a mouthful of blood. "He's not dead." Xiao Ruiyun's face turned bitter. "Captain, I'm not asking you. I'm asking if he's dead." King Gungwu glared at him. "My saber pierced his heart. Do you think he's dead or not?" He casually threw the blood-stained saber back to Lu Yi. Hearing him say that, the members of the team suddenly relaxed. They were all exhausted and sat on the ground. King Gungwu looked at Lu Yi. "Are you okay?" Lu Yi shook off the blood on his saber and sheathed it. He slowly shook his head. "I'll be on guard. Everyone heal yourselves." Among the people present he was the one with the lightest injuries. It was his duty to be on guard. "Thank you." The injuries of the A3 team varied. Fortunately no one died. However, the Immortal Dawn Mountain suffered a great loss this time. Not to mention the fact that the Great Elder, Ninghu, was a spy from the Myriad Devil Ridge. Even the few true Lake Stage Elders who stayed behind died in the battle. As for the other disciples who were killed by Ninghu, there were at least a dozen of them. Although this was not enough to cause serious damage to a rank 4 sect, it was still a great loss. The few true Lake Stage Elders who were still alive all sent people to comfort the disciples. They also organized people to treat the injured and clean up the battlefield. They were extremely busy. At this moment, the sect leader of the Immortal Dawn Mountain, An Mafeng, suddenly staggered. He spat out a mouthful of blood and fell on his back. "Sect leader." A true lake stage elder turned pale with fright and went forward to investigate. Once again it was chaos. Suddenly there was a clear sound of a sword. Then a ray of sword light landed on the battlefield. The sword light disappeared, revealing a short old man. He was emitting a powerful aura. It was obvious that he was a Divine Sea Stage cultivator. The Divine Sea Stage cultivators from the law department had arrived. But they seemed to be a little late. What's going on? The short old man turned his head and looked around. He was confused for a moment. After receiving the news, he rushed here. He thought that he would definitely see a one-sided massacre here, or that the spy from Myriad Demon's Ridge had already escaped. But now, it seemed that the situation was a little different from what he had imagined. A shocking battle had taken place here, and there were traces of spiritual energy explosions everywhere. Many people had died. Especially the skinny figure with a knife wound on his chest. He took 2 steps forward to take a look. The short old man was shocked. Ning Hu. It was the spy from the Myriad Devil Ridge who had reached the Divine Sea Stage. The great sage of human Tao, but he was dead. Chapter 904. As the leader of the enforcement team, King Gung Wu didn't have time to rest when he saw the old sword cultivator. He quickly got up and reported the matter. The short old man was shocked when he heard this. He never thought that these people would be able to kill a second-order Divine Sea Realm cultivator. Even though he couldn't believe it, the truth was right in front of him. However, there were still many doubts about today's matter. The short old man thought for a moment, then clapped his hands and tapped on his battlefield mark to send a message. At the same time, thousands of miles away, a ray of light shot towards the Immortal Dawn Mountain like a rainbow. Its speed was as fast as lightning. The figure wrapped in the stream of light was the Law Department head, Gan Wu Dang. At this moment, Gan Wu Dang no longer had his usual frivolous look. His face was solemn. Who would have thought that the great elder of the Immortal Dawn Mountain, Ning Hu, was not only a spy of the Myriad Demon's Ridge, but also a second-order Divine Sea Realm cultivator. He had never been exposed for so many years. Plus, he had been living in seclusion for so many years. Not many people had even seen him, which led to such a serious error in the intelligence report. When Gan Wu Dang received the news, he immediately had a thought in his mind. He was finished. This time it wasn't just Nian Yuxian who was going to break his skull. Even Shui Yuan was going to come too. How could he be a Spirit Sea Realm cultivator? He quickly mobilized the nearby Spirit Sea Realm cultivators to support him. At the same time, he left Grand Sky City and rushed towards the Immortal Dawn Mountain. After so many years as the Law Department head, this was the first time he left Grand Sky City because there was nothing that required him to do personally. But this time it was different. Luya was in the A3 team. If something happened to him, Gan Wu Dang would have a hard time in the future. However, Grand Sky City was far from the Immortal Dawn Mountain Road. Even if he was a Spirit Sea Realm cultivator, he couldn't rush there immediately even if he pushed his speed to the limit. He could only pray in his heart that nothing happened to Luya. Halfway through his flight, he suddenly received a message. Gan Wu Dang quickly checked it. His heart was in his throat, afraid that he would see something he didn't want to see. But after a moment his body suddenly stopped in mid-air. His expression became strange as he quickly sent a message back. Are you sure Ning Hu was killed? This old man saw it with his own eyes. Ning Hu's vitality dissipated. The old sword cultivator replied. But what puzzled him was that Ning Hu seemed to have been burned by a fire before he died. All the hair on his body was gone, and even the skin that was exposed to the air was charred. Then he reported everything he knew to Chen Wudong. He then added, there are 3 suspicious points about this matter. First, Ning Hu's identity was exposed. Why didn't he escape? Instead, he went on a killing spree in the Immortal Dawn Mountain. Logically speaking, since Ning Meng's identity was exposed, the first thing she should do was to escape. As for whether she could escape or not, it would depend on her own luck. But not only did he not escape, he even started a massacre of the Immortal Dawn Mountain disciples. Secondly, during the battle, and Mofeng didn't interfere. He just stood in place as if he cherished the brotherhood of the past. Rare treasure? Yes. I don't know what kind of treasure it is. After all, I didn't see it with my own eyes. But according to King Gingwu's description, it's a finger-long hiltless sword. I suspect it's the legendary deity vanquishing sword. Deity vanquishing sword. Chen Wudong's face turned serious. It hasn't appeared in the world for decades. The last time it appeared, it was in the hands of that person. After that person died, it disappeared without a trace. Lu Ye and that person came from the same sect. It's not strange for him to have it. I think Tang Yifeng gave it to him to protect himself. Well, if this kid really has the deity vanquishing sword, then it makes sense. Let's not talk about this. What do you think of the other two things? The short old man pondered for a while and replied. According to my understanding of Ninghu, he did this to put pressure on Enmafeng. He wanted to force him to reach the divine sea level. After his identity was exposed, he didn't immediately run away. Instead, he slaughtered the disciples of Immortal Dawn Mountain. As Enmafeng saw this, his mind must have been shaken and his divine soul must have been shaken. Perhaps he might have found a lucky chance to reach the divine sea realm. That's reasonable. That's why Enmafeng didn't do anything since the beginning of the battle. He must have felt the opportunity to reach the divine sea level. But judging from the result, he probably failed. If that's the case, Ninghu really put in a lot of effort. After all, he was sent here by the Devil Ridge when he was very young. Although he has the foundation of the Devil Ridge, he grew up in the Immortal Dawn Mountain. He spent almost his entire life in the Immortal Dawn Mountain. Humans are not plants. Humph, if he really had feelings for her, why would he massacre his disciples? I think the most important thing is that he knew he couldn't escape. That's why he made such a choice. You stay there and take care of things. You can leave after you've dealt with the things over there. Yes. After ending the communication with the old man, Chen Wudong looked in the direction of the Immortal Dawn Mountain. He exhaled heavily and said to himself, the deity vanquishing sword has appeared. What about the soul-severing sword? Back then, this sword and saber had left an indelible psychological shadow on many divine sea-level cultivators in the Devil Ridge. Chen Wudong shook his head and turned back. In the Immortal Dawn Mountain, the disciples suppressed their grief. Under the command of the true Lake Realm elders, they cleaned up the battlefield and cleaned up the corpses of their fellow disciples. Lu Yi and the others were also sent to a spirit mountain to recuperate. The old man didn't leave. Instead he stayed. King Gungwu couldn't help but feel strange. Logically speaking, there was no reason for First Effect Keiicheo to stay and look after them when he saw them leave without a trace. Moreover, the matter here was basically settled. All that was left was for them to recuperate and report back to Grand Sky City. However, if the old man wanted to stay, King Gungwu couldn't say anything. Moreover, this was the territory of the Immortal Dawn Mountain. Among the group, Lu Ye's injuries were the lightest. Coupled with his strong body and vigorous vitality, he recovered the fastest. It only took him a day to recover. On the Spirit Mountain, in the pavilion outside the courtyard, Lu Yi took out the deity vanquishing sword and examined it. This worldly treasure played a miraculous role in the battle against Ninghu. If it wasn't for its sudden burst of power, he wouldn't have been able to break through Ninghu's divine sense. Even though he also had a soul and spiritual will, he was different from the normal Spirit Sea Realm cultivators. He had taken an unorthodox path. Therefore, unless it was absolutely necessary, he wouldn't dare to use his divine sense to fight against a divine Sea Realm cultivator. This was also the reason why he didn't use his divine sense in the previous battle. It wasn't because he wanted to hide it, but because he had scruples. After the deity vanquishing sword's power was activated, it seemed to have undergone some changes. On the surface, it still looked like a transparent, colorless sword that was only the length of a finger. However, the deity vanquishing sword had a little spiritual light flowing within it. Now it was gone. The spiritual light had been activated by the deity vanquishing sword and blasted into Ninghu's divine sea. Although Lu Yi knew that worldly treasures were mostly one-time use items, he still felt that it was a pity. After all, it cost him 26,000 battle points to exchange for it from the War Merit Pavilion. He didn't know if the gains from this trip could make up for his loss. I think it should be enough, right? Suddenly, a shadow fell in front of him. Lu Yi was shocked. He instinctively leaped back and drew his sword. When he looked again, he saw that it was the old sword cultivator. He was standing in the same spot and looking at him with a smile. Don't be nervous, kid. I mean you no harm. I have some history with your sect master. Lu Yi said cautiously. Senior, are you talking about a friendship, or a grudge? The old sword cultivator laughed. It seems like you know your sect master well. Lu Yi said nothing. This old man seemed to have many friends, but he also had many enemies. He had to be on his guard. It doesn't matter if it's a friendship or a grudge. However, the matters of the older generation should be dealt with by the older generation. It has nothing to do with the younger generation. The old sword cultivator didn't give a clear answer. Lu Yi understood. Even if this old man had some history with the sect master, they probably didn't get along well. As for what he said about the matters of the older generation being dealt with by the older generation, he might be such a person but others might not be. Lu Yi didn't forget that when he was rushing to Grand Heaven City from the Blue Blood sect, he encountered many things along the way. If it weren't for his second senior apprentice sister secretly protecting him, he probably wouldn't have been able to issue orders within the time limit. If he couldn't issue orders, then it would be Wei Lu Mountain. Obviously, it was an expert who had a grudge against the Blue Blood sect. Lu Yi still didn't know who was behind the scenes. Perhaps he would never know. "Can you let this old man see the thing in your hand?" the old sword cultivator asked. Lu Yi naturally didn't want to, but the difference in cultivation base was obvious. He couldn't win against the old man, so he threw the deity vanquishing sword over. He said casually, "This thing has lost its power and is useless. It's just that its quality is a little special. It was quite good to use as an imperial tool. It really is the deity vanquishing sword." The old man's words startled Lu Yi. "Senior, you recognize this thing?" It didn't make sense. This thing was exchanged in the War Merit Pavilion. He went to the Tianji treasure vault to look for it, but he didn't find the deity vanquishing sword. How did this old man know about a treasure unique to the War Merit Pavilion? "I recognize it." The old man nodded. "But I haven't seen it for decades. When Tang Yifeng passed this thing to you, didn't he tell you how to use it? What does it have to do with the sect master?" Lu Yi was suspicious and slowly shook his head. The old man laughed and threw the deity vanquishing sword back to Lu Yi. "Although I don't know the mystery of this thing, it's not a one-time treasure. It can be used many times. Decades ago, it was a treasure in the hands of your eldest senior apprentice brother. It was a killing weapon that made the divine sea realm and myriad demons ridge tremble in fear. Now that it's in your hands, I hope you won't bury its reputation." Chapter 905. The old sword cultivator had already left. The reason why he showed up was probably because he wanted to see the deity vanquishing sword with his own eyes. However, Lu Yi could not calm down for a long time. Compared to what the old man said about the deity vanquishing sword not being a one-time use rare treasure, Lu Yi was more concerned about the fact that he mentioned his eldest senior brother. Lu Yi actually didn't know much about the eldest senior brother that he had never met, but he knew that his eldest senior brother was truly a stunning talent, a peerless figure that only appeared once in 10,000 years. Back then, the Jade Blood sect rose because of him but also fell because of him. The poison left behind decades ago still lingered. His eldest senior brother once had the deity vanquishing sword. In other words, the person who entered the War Merit Pavilion before him was indeed his eldest senior brother. Lu Yi actually had some guesses about this because when he first entered the War Merit Pavilion, the two dragons had said that no one had entered the War Merit Pavilion for decades. Who could be more amazing than his eldest senior brother a few decades ago? Other than him, who else was qualified to enter the War Merit Pavilion? A few decades ago, the deity vanquishing sword was in his eldest senior brother's hands. A few decades later, this item was in his hands. That was why the old sword cultivator had the illusion that this item belonged to the Jade Blood sect. A few thousand years after his eldest senior brother's death, the sect master passed it to him. Naturally, Lu Yi wouldn't try to explain the misunderstanding that had arisen. But this item was not a one-time use rare treasure. What did it mean? The spiritual light within the deity vanquishing sword had been activated. Now, the deity vanquishing sword was indeed made of a special material. Lu Yi originally intended to use it as a royal equipment. However, the old sword cultivator's words made Lu Yi think of a possibility. Since he was in another sect, it was inconvenient for him to verify it, so he put this item aside for now. King Gengwu and the others would probably need to rest for a few more days. The current environment was not suitable for cultivation, and it was not convenient for him to activate the talent tree to devour the fire spirit right. Lu Yi simply closed his eyes and focused, imprinting the soaring dragon's origin. He searched for the brightest light in the endless sea of stars and followed the peak powerhouses of the soaring dragon realm to experience their magnificent lives. For some reason, when Lu Yi imprinted the soaring dragon's origin this time, he felt a little different from before. However, he could not pinpoint exactly what was different about it. But soon a huge surprise fell on his head. Because this time, the imprinted target. Tears streamed down Lu Ye's face. It wasn't easy. Since he had obtained the Dragon Soaring Realm's broken source, he had the ability to imprint. Up until now, he had imprinted at least 80, if not 100 essences of powerful cultivators from various factions. There were even quite a few sword cultivators. This was because it was very easy for sword cultivators to appear among them. This caused the essences left behind by those sword cultivators to be even brighter, making it easier for Lu Yi to choose. After imprinting so many essences and witnessing the cultivation of so many experts from so many different factions and eras, Lu Yi now had expertise in every faction. When he transformed into Fierce Bull and cast spells, even Endless Shadow, who had spent a lot of time with him, couldn't see any flaws. Back when Pan Shandao was upgraded, he used his long spear to fight against Feng Ruli. Feng Ruli was beaten to the point of doubting his life. However, he had not met a single weapon cultivator who used sabers. This had become an obsession in Lu Ye's heart. Finally today the bitterness was over and the sweetness was about to come. He quickly immersed his mind and followed this saber-wielding weapon cultivator as he cultivated and grew. Time passed. When Lu Yi opened his eyes, they shone brightly. Obviously he had gained a lot. This time the target he chose to imprint was also at the peak of the Divine Sea realm. His life's cultivation was a rare treasure for Lu Yi. The only imperfection was that this expert's path was somewhat different from Lu Ye's. Lu Ye's personality was more compatible with the tyrannical and violent saber techniques of the Tyrant Saber technique. The saber of this expert from the Soaring Dragon realm was more agile. However, the stone of another mountain could be used to polish the jade. Cultivating until now, Lu Yi had his own perseverance and style. Naturally, he would not be easily influenced by others. Learning from other people's cultivation experience and strengthening his own foundation was the way to go. How long has it been? Lu Yi asked. Every time he imprinted the Dragon Soaring Realm's essences, he would record the time. Because as his cultivation improved and his spirit grew stronger, the time it took to imprint was also slowly decreasing. At first it took Lu Yi 2 or 3 days to imprint the essences, but last time it only took less than a day. This was growth. 4 hours, Yi, who was hiding in Hu Po's body, quietly replied. Lu Yi was slightly surprised and then overjoyed. So, this was what he felt strange about. He had a strange feeling just now. He felt that the Dragon Soaring Realm's essences today was a little different from before, but he could not pinpoint the specific difference. It was only now that he was sure of one thing. The time it took for him to imprint the essences was greatly reduced. This should not be just because he had advanced to the True Lake realm. The most important reason was that he had developed spiritual sense. Imprinting the essences consumed the power of his spirit. Now that he had developed a soul body and developed spiritual sense, the efficiency was naturally greatly increased. Perhaps one day he could reach the level where he could imprint the essences left behind by those experts in his heart with just a thought. When that time came, he could imprint the Dragon Soaring Realm's essences anytime, anywhere, and quickly absorb its nutrients. He could gather the strengths of hundreds of schools and eliminate the impurities. Imprinting the many insights of that expert in saber techniques churned in his heart. Lu Yi stood up and landed in the air. He pulled out the long saber at his waist and danced as he wished. In an instant, spiritual energy surged and saber light flashed. This time's imprinting allowed him to make a huge breakthrough in his saber techniques. Although his cultivation did not increase at all, his means of dealing with enemies had greatly improved. Suddenly, Lu Ye's figure froze and his long saber slashed forward in a domineering manner. At this moment, Lu Yi felt as if he was in an endless starry sky with a crescent moon hanging high behind him. From this crescent moon, endless crescent-like saber lights fell down. The sound of the air being torn apart rang out incessantly. The crescent-shaped blade gleams contained an extremely shocking amount of killing power, cutting huge gullies in the ground all around. Even the entire Spirit Mountain shook. Tyrant Saber Art's second form, Crescent Moon. The inheritance of the Tyrant Saber Art was hidden in an inconspicuous black stone. By immersing one's soul into it, one could obtain its true inheritance. When Lu Yi obtained the inheritance, he had comprehended the first form, Vast Star. At that time he was only a 6th order Cloud River Realm cultivator. After such a long time he had already mastered the first form. In his spare time, he had also tried to comprehend the second form of the Tyrant Saber Art, but his gains were not great. Until today, after imprinting the life of that master in the Soaring Dragon realm and absorbing the essence and philosophy of this master's saber techniques, Lu Yi was finally able to fully display the second form. Compared to the first form, Vast Star, the second form, Crescent Moon, was undoubtedly more lethal. Moreover, this saber seemed to be suitable for fighting against many enemies at once. However, the consumption was also greater. After displaying this saber, Lu Ye's arms were slightly sore and his blood was boiling. One had to know that he was now in the True Lake realm, Yet this saber strike consumed so much of his Saint Chi. Now it seemed that the reason he could not comprehend the second form when he was in the Cloud River realm was not because his perception was insufficient, but because his cultivation was insufficient. Now that he was in the true lake realm, everything fell into place naturally. The first form was named after the star, the second form was named after the moon, and Lu Yi roughly understood what the third form was. It must be named after the sun. However, he did not try to comprehend the third style. After this experience, Lu Yi understood one thing. If one's cultivation was not high enough, comprehending it would not be of much use. It would be better to imprint the origin of the dragon soaring realm's powerhouses. If he was lucky, he might encounter a powerhouse with the saber. The huge commotion here immediately alarmed King Jianghu and the others who were recuperating in various rooms in the small courtyard. With the sound of something breaking through the air, figures appeared one after another. Turning their heads to take a look, they realized that it was not an enemy attack, but Lu Yi practicing his saber here. Looking at the mess all around, Xiao Ruiyun could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. Oh my god! Such a scene was caused by a first-order true lake realm cultivator? The ground was covered in deep gullies that were 3 feet deep and several meters long. Not far away there were huge saber marks left on the mountain walls. Even if he was a fifth-order true lake realm cultivator, he would not be able to leave such a mark. Moreover, he was a senior captain. Xiao Ruiyun did not forget that he wanted to suppress Lu Yi with his military rank yesterday, but was suppressed instead. Of course, it was just a loss of face. He did not hold a grudge. In fact, after the incident he was a little grateful to Lu Yi. Because no matter what, the mission this time was more than completed. The rewards would definitely not be small. The others were also shocked and looked at Lu Yi as if they were looking at a monster. Since you are all out, let's return to Grand Sky City to report, King Jianghu said. Originally, they still needed to recuperate for a few days and wait for their injuries to recover. But recuperating here was fine, and returning to Grand Sky City was also fine. The sooner they reported back, the sooner they could receive the rewards. You are the captain, you have the final say. Xiao Ruiyun shrugged indifferently. The others did not have any objections. Then let's go. As King Jianghu spoke, he directly summoned the spirit boat. It seemed that he was not going to greet the Immortal Dawn Mountain. In fact, there was no need to greet them. The Immortal Dawn Mountain was a mess and they were already very busy. There was no one to take care of them. Among them, Lu Yi was in the best condition. The task of steering the spirit boat fell to him. Lu Yi had no objections. Soon, the spirit boat rose and broke through the sky. The old sword cultivator hiding in the dark saw this scene from afar. He sent a message to Qian Wu Dang to report the situation here and quickly left. On the way back, King Jianghu had the time to thank Lu Yi. Junior brother Lu, this mission is all thanks to you. If you did not turn the tide, our mission would have definitely failed. At that time, not to mention the reward for completing the mission, even the injuries they suffered before would have been in vain. Since we are members of the team, we should do our best. I heard that someone tried to stop you before. King Jianghu glared at Xiao Ruiyun as he spoke. He did not know what happened when he was unconscious. He only heard about it from Mu Zheng. Chapter 906. After being glared at by King Jianghu, Xiao Ruiyun immediately stood up and bowed to Lu Yi. Junior brother Lu, I was a snob. Please don't lower yourself to my level. He was a fifth-order true lake realm cultivator. His humble attitude showed his sincerity. Moreover, Lu Yi had no grudge with him. It was just a conflict of ideas. Naturally, he wouldn't hold it against him. Senior brother, you're too serious. I'm used to being alone. Plus, there were some things that were not easy to explain. Senior brother, you stopped me out of good intentions. Xiao Ruiyun grinned at Lu Yi. Junior brother Lu, you know how to talk. As for what Lu Yi said about some things that were not easy to explain, he was probably referring to the treasure that could break Ninghu's divine sense. After all, they had never seen such a thing before. Even if Lu Yi said he had such a treasure, it might not be of much use. Considering the gap between their strength and Ninghu's, no one would count on a treasure that they had never heard of. What are you laughing at? King Jianghu scolded with a straight face. The law enforcement team will advance and retreat together when carrying out a mission. We live and die together. This is the rule set by the law division in the early years. What makes me angry is not that you stopped junior brother Lu, but that when junior brother Lu took action, you all did not follow him immediately. Sweeping his gaze across, everyone lowered their heads in shame. When Lu Yi rushed to the depths of the Immortal Dawn Mountain, they did not follow him immediately. Coincidentally, King Gung-Wu woke up at that time. After learning about the situation, he immediately rushed over with everyone. When the captain scolded his team, Lu Yi naturally did not interrupt. King Gung-Wu scolded them again and said, "Junior brother Lu deserves the most credit for the completion of this mission. I will report this matter in detail when I return to Grand Sky City. I will also ask the division chief to ask Heaven's Secret to deduct half of your reward from this mission and give it to junior brother Lu." What? Lu Yi was stunned. After the Lonely Mountain City siege, Thought Moon Immortal seemed to have asked Heaven's Secret to give him a large amount of merit. Thinking back to his experience in the Soaring Dragon Realm, Lu Yi had a deeper understanding of Heaven's Secret in the 9 states. Of course. Even if it's all given to junior brother Lu, I have no objection, Xiao Ruiyun nodded seriously. Then your reward will be deducted, King Gung-Wu said. Please don't. Xiao Ruiyun immediately with a bitter face, I'm just saying it casually, please don't take it seriously. At the side, Mu Jing could not help but burst into laughter, only to let out another shriek of pain as her injuries were aggravated. The others couldn't help but laugh as well. The solemn atmosphere became lively. Lu junior brother Lu Are you interested in junior brother Lu? Oh. Lu junior Lu. Interested. Originally, King Gung-Wu only recruited Lu Ye's men under the orders of the minister. However, after this mission, King Gung-Wu realized that although Lu Ye's cultivation was low, he was very capable. Not to mention the treasure that could break through the spirit sense of a Spirit Sea Realm cultivator, even the weapon that could explode could be used by the team in the future. At the very least, when they were surrounded, the weapon would be very effective. And Lu Ye's ability to quickly arrange a spirit array. At that time, the crazy Ning who was trapped by Lu Ye's temporary trap formation, which gave them the chance to activate the 6 Origins spirit restricting lock. Yang Kai wasn't clear about Lu Ye's strength as he hadn't seen much of it during this mission, but he had seen the traces of Lu Ye's saber art. It was definitely not something an ordinary first-order true Lake Realm cultivator could achieve. Team A3 hadn't been replenished. One reason was the lack of manpower in the Law Division. Another reason was that King Gung-Wu had his own vision. He wouldn't accept just anyone. If he chose someone who couldn't work well with the rest of the team, he might as well not choose. But if it was Lu Yi, he would have no problem. Senior brother, I appreciate your kindness. To be honest, I just reached the True Lake Realm not long ago. I'm not familiar with the situation here. King Gung-Wu nodded. He understood Lu Ye's meaning and didn't force him. Take your time, don't be too anxious. Time flew by as they chatted along the way. They rested twice in the middle of the mission. The next day, the huge Grand Sky City finally came into view. King Gung-Wu had to go to the Law Division to personally report the details of the mission. The others had yet to recover from their injuries, so they dispersed to treat their wounds. Lu Yi also found an ownerless house and walked in. There was one thing that was on his mind. The old sword cultivator said that the deity vanquishing sword wasn't a one-time use treasure. Since it wasn't a one-time use treasure, it didn't make sense that it would lose its power after one use. What he needed to do now was to find a way to restore its power. The only thing Lu Yi could think of was to infuse his divine sense into it. He couldn't use his divine sense casually when there were people around him. Now that he was hiding in his house, he could do whatever he wanted. However, after a series of attempts, he was exhausted and his divine sense was almost exhausted. Yet, he still couldn't restore the power of the deity vanquishing sword. On the other side at the Law Division, King Gung-Wu reported all the details of the mission to Chen Wudong without missing anything. He also brought up his request to deduct half of everyone's reward and give it to Lu Yi. Chen Wudong listened quietly and nodded. I'm glad that you took the initiative to bring this up. I didn't misjudge you. Alright, you haven't recovered yet. Go and rest. King Gung-Wu didn't leave immediately. Instead he said, Master, junior brother Lu is a great talent. Yes, so what? If I can use such a great talent, I will be invincible in future missions. King Gung-Wu clenched his fist and waved his hand excitedly. He looked like he was going to conquer the world if he could get Lu Yi. Chen Wudong felt a little uneasy. Just tell me what you want to do. Master, please transfer someone from the front line. My team is still lacking a member. After 3 breaths, King Gung-Wu flew out of the hall with a weird cry. He almost crashed into a passerby. Landing on the ground, he scratched his head in confusion. If you don't agree, then don't agree. Why are you so angry? The Master's divine sense transmitted into his ears. You must keep this mission a secret. Other than your team, don't tell anyone else. Yes, master. King Gungwu quickly cupped his fist and replied. In the hall, Qian Wudong snorted and sat down slowly. Transferring Lu Yi from the front line? What a joke. If Lu Yi belonged to another mountain pass, the Law Division Master would only need to say a word to transfer him. Those mountain pass masters would definitely give him face. However, Lu Yi was now in the Vicissitude Flame Mountain Pass and was the only soldier under that woman's command. If he wanted to transfer someone from that woman's command, Qian Wudong would lose his skull. When Lu Yi came to Grand Sky City, he was only in the 9th Order Cloud River realm. If Qian Wudong was in the True Lake realm at that time, he could have recruited him into the Law Division. However, the difference of one realm made him miss such a great opportunity and allowed Nian Yuxian to take advantage of it. However, after this experience, Qian Wudong would be able to borrow soldiers from Nian Yuxian in the future. If he borrowed too many times, even if he wasn't on the same side, he would become one of them. Qian Wudong was calculating in his heart. Initially, he asked King Gungwu to recruit Lu Ye's men with the intention of letting Lu Yi gain some benefits. After all, the Vicissitude Flame Mountain Pass had been peaceful for a long time, and Lu Yi wouldn't be able to gain much merit there. Who would have thought that such a huge surprise would happen, and it really made him interested in Lu Yi. Transferring people was impossible for the time being, but Lu Yi could use some of his methods. Thinking of this, Qian Wudong shouted, "Men! Why couldn't it work?" In the secret room, Lu Yi looked at the deity vanquishing sword in his hand with a puzzled expression. According to his idea, if he wanted to replenish the power of the deity vanquishing sword, he should pour his divine sense into it. However, even if he exhausted his divine sense, he still couldn't restore the deity vanquishing sword to its original state. It didn't make sense that it wouldn't work. Did that old sword cultivator misunderstand something? If there was anyone who knew about eldest senior brother, it would be the sect master and Shui Yuan. Lu Yi quickly sent a message to Shui Yuan and asked about the deity vanquishing sword. According to the rules of the War Merit Pavilion, the origin of the treasures and the existence of the War Merit Pavilion could not be revealed. Lu Yi was only asking about the deity vanquishing sword, so he wouldn't break the rules. Shui Yuan replied quickly, "You have the deity vanquishing sword?" She was puzzled. The deity vanquishing sword and the soul-severing saber disappeared along with eldest senior brother. How did they suddenly appear in youngest junior brother's hands? Or did eldest senior brother hide the treasures somewhere in the sect, waiting for the fated one to come? And youngest junior brother is that fated one? Yes. As for the origin, second senior martial sister, please forgive me. I can't tell you. Shui Yuan naturally wouldn't blame him for this. She replied, "The deity vanquishing sword is not a one-time use treasure. Eldest senior brother used it many times to kill enemies. As for how to restore its power, I don't know." Lu Yi frowned. Even Shui Yuan couldn't figure it out. How could she ask the chief? "Little junior brother, did a Spirit Sea Realm cultivator make things difficult for you?" Shui Yuan's next message followed. "Who is it?" Shui Yuan didn't think too much when Lu Yi asked about the deity vanquishing sword. But she soon realized that since Lu Yi used the power of the deity vanquishing sword, he must have met a Spirit Sea Realm cultivator. This caused the flames of anger in her heart to surge. As she asked this question, she had already charged out from the front. Lu Yi quickly responded, "Of course not. I was just testing the power of the deity vanquishing sword." Youngest junior brother, did a Spirit Sea Realm cultivator make things difficult for you? Shui Yuan's next message followed. "Who is it?" Shui Yuan didn't think too much when Lu Yi asked about the deity vanquishing sword. But she soon realized that since Lu Yi used the power of the deity vanquishing sword, he must have met a Spirit Sea Realm cultivator. This caused the flames of anger in her heart to surge. As she asked this question, she had already charged out from the front. Lu Yi quickly responded, "Of course not. I was just testing the power of the deity vanquishing sword." He couldn't tell his second senior sister that he met a Spirit Sea Realm cultivator when he was on a mission with the A3 team. Otherwise she wouldn't let it go. Outside the center guard peak, Shui Yuan paused. "Is that true?" "Of course. I'm in Haotian City now. How could a Spirit Sea Realm cultivator make things difficult for me?" Shui Yuan's face softened a bit. "That's good. I won't interfere in the fight between peers. But if anyone bullies the weak because of their seniority, you must tell me." Second senior sister was still so reliable. Lu Yi quickly said, "Got it." He clicked to download the best book chasing app. Many readers used it to read books aloud. Chapter 907. What Lu Yi could confirm now was that the deity vanquishing sword was not a one-time use rare treasure. However, if this item was not replenished with divine thought, then there was only one possibility that Lu Yi could think of. After packing up, he left his residence with Hu Pa. He asked a random person on the street and went straight to the nearest divine secret hall. There was more than one divine secret hall in the vast sky city. There were 7 or 8 of them scattered around the city to make it convenient for cultivators to enter and borrow the divine secret pillar. There were not many cultivators in vast sky city now. When Lu Yi arrived, there were only a few people in this divine secret hall. They surrounded the divine secret pillar in different directions. Lu Yi waited for a while before an empty seat appeared. He walked forward and pressed his hand on the divine secret pillar. His mind connected to the War Merit Pavilion. The next instant, the projection of his mind appeared in front of the quaint door. The 2 WRMs immediately came to life. Seeing that Lu Yi had thrown fresh beast meat over, they were overjoyed. Lu Yi pushed the door open and entered, leaving them to feast on the meat. He walked straight to the stone platform where he exchanged for the deity vanquishing sword. Lu Yi looked up and saw that there was nothing on the platform. He could not help but frown. He had thought that there was more than one deity vanquishing sword. Just like the myriad Devil Ridge battlefield imprint, it could be exchanged repeatedly. That was why eldest senior brother could use the deity vanquishing sword so many times back then. This gave others the illusion that this treasure was not a one-time use rare treasure. However, it seemed that things were different from what he had imagined. There was no second deity vanquishing sword on the stone platform. After pondering for a while, he thought of another possibility. Although it was unlikely, he had to try to be sure. He picked up the deity vanquishing sword that had lost its power and placed it on the stone platform in front of him. In the next instant, a piece of information exploded in his heart. Do you want to replenish the deity vanquishing sword's power? 30,000 battle merits. The corner of Lu Ye's eyes twitched. That was indeed the case. The deity vanquishing sword's power could indeed be replenished. However, it was not done by humans but by divine secret. He only needed to bring the used deity vanquishing sword back here and place it on the stone platform where he exchanged for it. Of course, he would have to pay 30,000 battle achievements in exchange for that. Lu Yi was so angry that he almost laughed. 30,000 points? Why didn't he just rob someone? He did have some battle merits left, enough to replenish the power of the deity vanquishing sword, but this number was a little too big. Back then, he had only spent 26,000 battle achievements to exchange for the deity vanquishing sword. At that time he had thought that it was a bargain. After all, a single tracking disc was worth 30,000 battle merits. The deity vanquishing sword was a rare treasure that could pose a threat to Spirit Sea Realm cultivators. Only now did he realize that this was a trap. The deity vanquishing sword itself was not that expensive. In fact, it gave Lu Yi the illusion that he had picked up a great bargain. However, the cost of using it was not small. The high and mighty heavenly secret gave Lu Yi the impression of a profiteer. However, on second thought, there was a reason why it was so expensive. Take this time as an example. If the deity vanquishing sword had not broken Ninghu's divine thought by surprise, the A3 team would not have been able to take him down. There might even have been a large number of casualties. The tracking disc was already worth 30,000 battle merits. A rare treasure that could pose a threat to Spirit Sea Realm cultivators should not be cheaper than the tracking disc. Although the battle merits were good, they were nothing compared to a treasure that could save one's life at a critical moment. Lu Yi had spent 180,000 battle merits to exchange for the soul-suppressing pagoda. Was it not to save his own life in front of a Spirit Sea Realm cultivator? This time he had encountered Ninghu. Who knew what other Spirit Sea Realm cultivators he would encounter next time? Hence, no matter what, the deity vanquishing sword's power had to be replenished. He gritted his teeth and chose to replenish it. In the next instant, the stone platform shone brightly. The deity vanquishing sword was engulfed by the light. After a dozen breaths, when the light faded, Lu Yi raised his hand and took out the deity vanquishing sword. He noticed that this rare treasure's transparent blade had an additional spiritual light. The deity vanquishing sword's power had been replenished. Lu Ye's heart was bleeding. He did not have the mood to stay here any longer. He put away the deity vanquishing sword and left the War Merit Pavilion under the earnest advice of the 2 flood dragons. After walking out of the divine secret hall, Lu Yi looked up at the sky. Just as he was about to return to the vicissitude Flame Mountain Pass, a ray of light suddenly landed in front of him. The person cupped his fist and said, "Are you Lu Yi, fellow cultivator Lu?" "That's right." Lu Yi nodded. You are? I am the law commander. The head of the law department has ordered fellow cultivator Lu to meet him immediately. Lord Chen Wudong? Lu Yi was surprised. He did not know why this person was looking for him. The person nodded. Fellow cultivator Lu, if there's nothing else, please go now. Lead the way. Although Lu Yi did not know why Chen Wudong was looking for him, it definitely had something to do with this mission. It seemed that he would not be able to return to the vicissitude Flame Mountain Pass today. Lu Yi followed the messenger all the way to the law department. This was a complex of buildings. Many halls were connected to each other. Cultivators hurried in and out from time to time. Many of them seemed to be injured. This made Lu Yi realize how difficult it was for the law department to enforce the law. The messenger led Lu Yi to a hall on the side. Without announcing his arrival, he gestured with his hand. This way, the head of the law department is waiting for you. Lu Yi nodded in greeting and stepped in. He immediately saw a familiar figure. Every time he saw the head of the law department, Lu Yi would recall the taste of the defiant dragon thorn. His back would ache a little. He walked up and bowed. Lu Yi of the vicissitude Flame Mountain Pass greets Lord Chen Wudong. Please take a seat. Chen Wudong, who was reading documents behind the desk, waved his hand without looking up. Lu Yi walked to the side and sat down. In a flash, a beautiful woman with bright eyes and white teeth served tea. Lu Yi thanked her and took it. The woman looked at him with a smile. Her beautiful eyes revealed a sense of scrutiny. After serving tea, the woman did not leave. Instead, she walked behind Chen Wudong and massaged his shoulders. Then she bent down and whispered something in Chen Wudong's ear. Lu Yi was speechless. He did not know who this woman was to Chen Wudong. It seemed that they were close. However, this was the office of the law department. As the head of the law department, it was inappropriate for him to be so intimate with a woman in public. But it was none of his business. He looked outside and waited quietly. I have something else to do. You can leave now, Chen Wudong said. The woman stomped her feet and snorted. Then she left unhappily. Lu Yi, yeah. Chen Wudong called again. Yes, Lord Chen. Lu Yi quickly got up and walked to Chen Wudong. There was a mistake in the information compiled by the intelligence agency for this mission, which caused you to encounter danger. Fortunately, the final result was not bad. I only ordered everyone who experienced this to keep their mouths shut. No one else will know about this mission. You can rest assured. Lu Yi was confused. He did not know what he should rest assured about. Also, I'm interested in something else. Lord Chen, are you referring to? He thought to himself, is this guy interested in the deity vanquishing sword? However, the deity vanquishing sword had to be replenished at the War Merit Pavilion. Other than himself, it was useless for anyone else. Now that the deity vanquishing sword was fully replenished, it could only be used once. After that, it would be made of a special material. Explosive fire spirit rock. Chen Wudong had no idea what Lu Yi was thinking. He did not beat around the bush. I heard that you used an explosive fire spirit rock for this mission. The explosive power is quite impressive. Lu Yi nodded. Yes, there is such a thing. Can I see it? Chen Wudong reached out his hand with a smile. You've already stretched out your hand, how could I not show it to you? As long as he spat out a single word of no, this hand would probably turn into a slap. Moreover, there was nothing shameful about it. Lu Yi took out a fire spirit rock and marked it with explosive spiritual runes. Then he handed it over. Chen Wudong took it and studied it carefully. Then he began to exert force. Sir, please be careful. This thing. Lu Yi wanted to remind Chen Wudong not to use too much force in case the explosive spiritual runes were triggered. However, before he could finish, the fire spirit rock in Chen Wudong's hand exploded. However, there was no explosion. The dazzling fire was condensed between Chen Wudong's fingers. Because it was too compressed, the fire looked like a small sun. After the shockwave dissipated, Chen Wudong looked up and smiled at Lu Yi. What's wrong with this thing? Nothing. What else could Lu Yi say? Chen Wudong was a divine ocean realm cultivator. An explosive fire spirit rock could not hurt him. Even the shockwave was controlled by his fingers. Did you make this yourself? Chen Wudong asked. Lu Yi's movements were so fast that even Chen Wudong didn't notice anything amiss. Yes. Good. Chen Wudong praised. To tell you the truth, many years ago, a spiritual tattooist discovered the magical effect of combining the fire spirit rock and the explosive spiritual runes. This thing also appeared in the front line of the war between the two sides. Used? Lu Yi caught the key word. He was not surprised that this method had been discovered long ago. It was not a whimsical idea, but a simple combination of spiritual stones and spiritual tattoos. Since ancient times, there had been so many spiritual tattooists, so it was natural that someone had discovered it earlier than him. Yes, but too many people died. Later on no one made it. Too many spiritual tattooists died. Lu Yi grasped the key point immediately. Qian Wudong nodded. The fire spirit rock is not stable. There is a risk of failure when constructing the spiritual runes. No matter how skilled a spiritual tattooist is, he or she cannot guarantee that he or she will succeed. According to the information I got, you are a spiritual tattooist. So you should know what will happen if someone fails to construct the explosive spiritual runes in the fire spirit rock. Once the spiritual runes fail, the spiritual energy in the fire spirit rock will go berserk. Then it will cause an explosion. Brother Shin. Yes. Shin Zhangqing walked on the road. When he met people he knew, he would greet them or nod to them. But no matter who it was, no one had any extra expression on their faces. It was as if they were indifferent to everything. To this, Shin Zhangqing was used to it. Because this was the Demon Suppression Department, an organization that maintained the stability of the Great Qin dynasty. Their main duty was to kill demons and monsters. Of course, they also had other side jobs. Could be said that, in the Demon Suppression Department, everyone's hands were stained with blood. When a person was used to life and death, he or she would become indifferent to many things. When he first came to this world, Shin Zhangqing was not used to it. But as time passed he got used to it. The Demon Suppression Department was very big. Those who could stay in the Demon Suppression Department were all powerful masters or people who had the potential to become masters. Shin Zhangqing belonged to the latter. There were two professions in the Demon Suppression Department. One was the Guardian, the other was the Demon Slayer. Anyone who entered the Demon Suppression Department would start from the lowest level, the Demon Slayer. Then, they would be promoted step by step until they finally had a chance to become a Guardian. Shin Zhangqing's previous life was a trainee Demon Slayer in the Demon Suppression Department. He was also the lowest level Demon Slayer. He had the memories of his previous life. He was also very familiar with the environment of the Demon Suppression Department. It didn't take long for Shin Zhangqing to stop in front of a pavilion. Different from the other places in the Demon Suppression Department that were filled with killing intent, this pavilion was like a crane in a flock of chickens. In the Demon Suppression Department that was filled with blood, it presented a different kind of tranquility. At this moment, the door of the pavilion was open. Occasionally people would enter and leave. Shin Zhangqing only hesitated for a moment before stepping in. Entering the pavilion, the environment suddenly changed. A burst of ink mixed with a faint smell of blood assaulted his senses, causing his brows to instinctively furrow, but they quickly smoothed out. The smell of blood on everyone in the Demon Suppression Department was almost impossible to wash away. Chapter 908. With the combination of the fire spiritual rock and the exploding spiritual tattoo, the power of the explosion was not weak. Even a Spirit Sea Realm cultivator could withstand it once, but he would not be able to withstand it if it happened too many times. As for a true Lake Realm spiritual tattooist, needless to say, one explosion was enough to injure him. After 3 to 5 explosions, even if he did not die, he would be bedridden. That's why I'm curious. How did you make so many exploding fire spiritual rocks? Qian Wudong looked at Lu Yi. My success rate in constructing spirit tattoos is higher? Lu Yi couldn't tell Qian Wudong that it was impossible for him to fail. Even if he said so, Qian Wudong wouldn't believe him. A spiritual tattooist building spiritual tattoos was the same as an alchemist making elixirs. No matter how skilled a spiritual tattooist was, there was still a possibility of failure. Qian Wudong couldn't help laughing. A Spirit Sea Realm spiritual tattooist has an 80% success rate of constructing explosive tattoos in a fire spiritual stone. How high can you be? However, once the construction fails, it will inevitably lead to terrible consequences. I want to know how you were able to protect yourself from the explosion of the spirit stone and escape unscathed. This was the reason why he had called Lu Yi over this time. If this problem could be solved, Haoyan Alliance would have one more way to deal with their enemies. This was of great strategic value. Lu Yi was in a dilemma. Qian Wudong thought he had a way to avoid the explosion of the fire spiritual rock, but that was not the case at all. How could he explain this? After thinking for a while, Lu Yi could only say, I have my own unique way. You can't tell me? Qian Wudong looked at him with a faint smile. Don't worry. I won't ask you for nothing. If you can share your way and solve this problem for the prefecture guards, you will be rewarded handsomely, including but not limited to military exploits. Lu Yi felt a headache coming. He didn't know how to respond. Finally, he said helplessly, "Sir, it's not that I want to hide it from you. It's just that no one else can use my way. Even if I share it, it's useless. Sir, you don't believe me. All right, I'll ask Tianji to bear witness. If my way can be used by others, please punish me." After a moment of silence, Lu Yi said again, "Sir, you should believe me now. In the 9 regions, the heavenly secret oath could sometimes help cultivators resolve some doubts and unnecessary disputes. Under the witness of the heavenly secret, no one could lie." Qian Wudong didn't expect Lu Yi to be so straightforward. It seemed that Lu Yi didn't lie to him. Qian Wudong was the only one who could use his methods, so there was no point in sharing it with others. He sighed and couldn't help but reveal a disappointed expression. "If that's the case, then it's fine. You may leave." "Yes." Lu Yi heaved a sigh of relief and turned to leave. But when he reached the door, he suddenly turned back. "Anything else?" Qian Wudong looked at him in confusion. Lu Yi said, "Sir, if you want explosive fire spirit rocks, I can help you refine them." Gan Wudong couldn't help but laugh. "How much can you make by yourself?" If he were to do it alone, the production would be limited and it would lose its value. "Sir, how much do you think we can refine every day to satisfy our needs?" Lu Yi asked instead of answering. Qian Wudong looked at Lu Yi and realized that the latter was seriously discussing this issue with him. Qian Wudong said, "Of course, the more the better. But if you were the only one making them, would you be able to produce 1,000 pieces a day?" He thought Qian Wudong was going to ask for a lot. It was only 1,000 pieces. If he wanted to refine them, it would be a simple matter. 1,000 explosive fire spirit rocks would take less than an hour. Qian Wudong was a minister. How could his appetite be so small? But Lu Yi also knew that it was best to stop before going too far. Qian Wudong didn't think he could refine 1,000 pieces per day. Everyone's energy was limited, and there was a certain amount of risk involved. If he said too much, Qian Wudong might not believe him. Even if Qian Wudong did believe him, Qian Wudong would be suspicious. It should be possible. Qian Wudong was shocked. Really? If he could refine 1,000 pieces per day, then he could make 30,000 pieces per month. It was more than enough to equip a minister of law. It's related to the future of our province. I'm willing to try my best. Lu Yi answered firmly. Good. Qian Wudong nodded approvingly as if the Force province had a successor. But Lu Yi's next sentence exposed his real purpose. "Sir, it takes a lot of time and effort for me to refine. Shouldn't the prefecture guards do something for me?" Qian Wudong couldn't help but laugh when he heard Lu Yi's blunt words. "Of course." Qian Wudong thought for a while and said, "What do you think? The materials will be provided by the prefecture guards. Every time you refine a piece of explosive fire spirit rock, you'll be rewarded with 1 battle credit." Lu Yi turned around and left. 2 points. Qian Wudong was speechless. Lu Yi didn't give him any face at all. Lu Yi didn't stop walking. 1 explosive fire spirit rock was worth 2 battle credits. 1,000 pieces per day would be 2,000 battle credits. It wasn't a lot, but it wasn't a small amount either. The main reason was that Lu Yi could refine it in an hour. In this way he could earn 60,000 battle credits in 1 month. However, this was not what Lu Yi had expected. Most importantly, it was rare to come across such an opportunity. Naturally, he would try to get as many benefits as he could. Such opportunities were rare. "Name your price." Qian Wudong was helpless. Seeing that Lu Yi was about to walk out of the Ear Palace, he hurriedly said. Lu Yi turned around and raised his hand. He opened his hand and flipped it over. "You little bastard. How dare you ask for so much?" Qian Wudong was furious. He was the head of the law department, in charge of the laws of the prefecture guards. His words were like a mountain. Since when did anyone dare to bargain with him? He glared at Lu Yi and softened his tone. "Kid, you should know that you're a member of the prefecture guards. The things you refine can improve the strength of the prefecture guards. When the prefecture guards get stronger, you can benefit from it." "Sir, I know that. But if you want the horse to run, you have to feed the horse. Although I'm the head of the law department, I have to put the law department and the prefecture guards first. I can't accept your price. Raise the price on the spot and return the money as the fall. That's how business works. You little bastard." Qian Wudong gritted his teeth. 3 points. 1 spiritual stone is 3 points. You can earn 3,000 points a day. That's 90,000 points a month. Lu Yi shook his head. "My lord, let's not talk about the risks involved in refining this item for now. It will take a lot of time and delay my cultivation. I sacrificed my future for the sake of the prefectural guard. My lord, you can't let me suffer a loss. I want battle points to buy the golden spirit lot to make up for my lagging cultivation progress. How can a golden spirit lot that costs 90,000 battle points a month make up for it?" Qian Wudong thought that it made sense. He sighed. 5 points. That's my limit. Any more and we won't talk. Let's make a Tianji contract. Lu Yi agreed without hesitation. 5 points for an explosive fire spiritual stone was the price he expected. "You're so sure that you can complete the task?" Qian Wudong looked at him suspiciously. "You should know that once you make a Tianji contract, you'll be punished if you can't complete the task. That's my business. So just wait and see." "Since you're so confident, I'll do as you wish." Qian Wudong waved his hand and a blank Tianji contract fell down with a golden light. He quickly listed out the terms and conditions for Lu Yi to read. After both of them made sure there were no problems, they both left their marks. With that, the Tianji contract was made. "Sir, there's one more thing I need to tell you," Lu Yi said. "The Tianji contract has been made. You can't raise the price." "Sir, you're underestimating me. What I want to tell you is that there's a loss when making this thing." "I know that. But the loss rate can't be more than 30%. Lu Yi was overjoyed, but he pretended to be troubled. "I'll try my best." Now, he didn't have to worry about the fire spiritual stones he needed for his talent tree. The loss rate couldn't be more than 30%. In other words, he could pocket 30% of the stones. This wasn't his original intention, but if he had a 100% success rate, he wouldn't be able to explain it to others. 70% would be the best. "Sir, when can we start?" Lu Yi couldn't wait. He didn't expect that this trip to Vast Sky City would not only provide him with a stable way to earn battle credits, but also fire spiritual stones. This was a great deal. "If you think it's okay now, we can start now." "I'll listen to you, sir. Come with me." Qian Wudong led Lu Yi out of the Ear Palace and flew up. He wrapped Lu Yi in his spiritual power and flew in a certain direction. Soon they landed in a small courtyard. This is the property of the Law Division. Normally, it is used by the injured cultivators of the Law Division to recuperate. You will live here for the time being. I will have someone deliver the fire spirit stones. I will not ask about the process, only the result. In 7 days someone will come to collect them. Lu Yi nodded. There was no problem with this arrangement. Qian Wudong soon left, leaving Lu Yi alone. He could finally come out and take a breather. The courtyard wasn't big. Lu Yi set up some arrays to guard it. As soon as he finished, there was a knock on the door. Lu Yi got up and opened the door. A cultivator he didn't know was standing outside. He handed over a storage bag. Lu Yi took it and checked it. There were 10,000 fire spiritual stones inside. He nodded. No problem. The cultivator didn't say anything. He cupped his fists and left. Qian Wudong had ordered his men to deliver 10,000 pieces of fire spiritual stones to Lu Yi, and the delivery time was 7 days later. Obviously, he had taken 30% of the cost into account. Therefore, after 7 days, Lu Yi only needed to give Qian Wudong 7,000 pieces of fire spiritual stones to complete the mission. By then, Lu Yi would have 35,000 battle achievements. This didn't include the remaining 3,000 fire spiritual stones. Lu Yi walked into the room and set up another array. Time to work. Chapter 909. It wasn't difficult for Lu Yi to inscribe explosive spiritual tattoos on fire spirit stones. Therefore, he held a fire spirit stone in each hand. The one in his left hand was for inscribing explosive spiritual tattoos, while the one in his right hand was for his talent tree to devour. Not only that, there was also a spiritual energy vortex in front of him, and many small funnels on his body. He was the only one in the world who could do two things at the same time while cultivating. As for what he said in front of Qian Wudong about sacrificing his own future for the prefecture guards, it was impossible. Cultivation was always the most important thing in a cultivator's cultivation. Lu Yi understood this a long time ago. He couldn't do anything that would delay his cultivation, no matter how great the benefits were. Time flew by. In just half a day, all 7,000 exploding fire spirit stones had been refined, and Lu Yi refined another 200 before stopping. The number couldn't be fixed or else it would be too ugly. 10,000 raw materials to produce 7,200 explosive fire spirit stones. This result was very impressive. Qian Wudong gave him 7 days and he couldn't leave the rest of the time, so he could only continue cultivating. He didn't imprint the origin of the soaring dragon realm, but took out the core of the breath fruit and prepared to enter the mirage to train. Since he reached the true lake stage, he hadn't entered the mirage, so there weren't many places to test his strength. Moreover, he had obtained many new spiritual tattoos, so Lu Yi wanted to train in the mirage and familiarize himself with the effects of these spiritual tattoos. Lu Yi was especially looking forward to the spiritual tattoo of Split Shadow. Among the 7 new spiritual tattoos he obtained last time, this was the only one that could be used in a one-on-one battle. He channeled his spiritual energy into the core of the breath fruit. His vision blurred and he appeared in the familiar small space. There was a door on each side, one of which led to the training ground, and the other to the Immortal Essence City. Opening the gate to enter the Immortal Origin City required 10,000 merit points. Lu Yi naturally wouldn't open it easily. Moreover, the last time he returned from the Immortal Origin City, the City Lord had said that he was already a member of the Jianghu team. If there was a battle, the City Lord would use some special means to remind him. When the time came, he would directly enter the Immortal Origin City to participate in the battle. Until now, Lu Yi hadn't received any notifications from the Immortal Essence City, so it should be quite peaceful there. Calculating the time, it had only been a few months since the last battle. Lu Yi turned his gaze to the other door and he raised his hand to push it. The door light flowed and a line of words immediately. Lu Yi said, "It's price again." When he had obtained the breath fruit core when he had been at the spirit stream tier, it had cost him 50 merit points each time he used it. Now that he had reached the Cloud River tier, he needed to spend 100 merit points. Now that he was in the true lake stage, the contribution points required to enter the mirage had indeed increased. This was the same as the price increase in the Cloud River tier. It was doubled from its original base price. 200 merit points. The current Lu Yi naturally wouldn't care about a mere 200 contribution points. Without any hesitation, he pushed open the door and stepped into the rolling fog. The process of tempering was dull and tedious. It was nothing more than an endless stream of enemies charging out of the mist, only to be killed by Lu Yi. To Lu Yi's surprise, the opponents he encountered this time were no longer limited to human cultivators and insectoids. 2 peculiar races, the Blood Race and the Corpse Race, had appeared among their opponents. The Blood Clan was the enemy he encountered in the Soaring Dragon Realm, and the Corpse Clan was the enemy of the Wuxia continent. There was no reason for them not to appear before, but now they suddenly appeared. Lu Yi guessed that the enemies that appeared in the core of the breath fruit were most likely related to the previous experiences of the cultivators who entered this place. Because he had encountered the Blood Race and the Corpse Race, enemies of these 2 races would also appear here. If he encountered any other messy races in the future, the mirage in the core of the breath fruit should also be able to reflect it. His cultivation had increased to the true lake realm. In addition, Lu Yi had made great progress in his saber techniques, mastered new spirit patterns and comprehended the second style of the Tyrant Saber technique. This tempering could be said to be a fruitful experience. Only the moment when he was exhausted and killed, the pain was unbearable. That was the real feeling of death. Lu Yi engraved this feeling in his heart. Only in this way could he maintain sufficient vigilance in the real world. In the mirage, no matter how many times he died, only his mind would be damaged. In reality, he only had 1 life. Time flew by and 7 days had passed. The cultivator who sent the Fire Spirit Stone arrived as scheduled and took away the exploding Fire Spirit Stone that Lu Yi gave him. After a while, Lu Yi felt some movement in the battlefield imprint. He lowered his head to check. His name, identity, and cultivation had not changed. Needless to say, the location change was nothing more than the change from the Blue Flame Mountain Pass to the vast sky city of the military province. In the contribution column, more than 100,000 contribution points were reduced, leaving more than 350,000. After all, cultivating like this every day and entering the mirage to temper himself again and again consumed a lot. The most important thing was that in the contribution column 27, his strength was a little higher. Originally, after replenishing the power of the God-vanquishing sword, he only had a little more than 100,000 contribution points left. But just a few days ago he gained another 130,000 contribution points. Needless to say, it was the reward from this time's mission with the A3 team. It was impossible for a normal mission to have such a big harvest, but this time, there were many problems and troubles. In the end, a second-order Divine Sea Realm cultivator was captured and killed by the A3 squad. Naturally, the reward would be greatly increased. Moreover, on the way back, King Gungwu said that he would report to the division leader and ask the division leader to ask the division leader to ask the division leader to reduce everyone's contribution points by half and give it to Lu Yi. With all these reasons combined, Lu Yi was able to get such a generous reward. According to the original mission, the A3 team went out to carry out a mission to capture a 9th Order True Lake Realm cultivator. The best reward would be 10 to 20,000 contribution points per person. But this time, even if their harvest was reduced by half and given to Lu Yi, the contribution points were still more than expected, at least 20 to 30,000. And the extra contribution points just now were naturally from refining the exploding fire spirit stone, a total of 36,000 points. With all these factors, Lu Ye's contribution points were more than 270,000. In the entire 9 states, there was no one else like Lu Yi who could continuously obtain such a large amount of contribution points. Otherwise, he would not have been promoted to the rank of commandant when he was still in the True Lake realm. Just as Lu Yi was checking his battle merits, Wei Ling suddenly made a move. Lu Yi checked and found that it was Gan Wudong who gave him an order through Wei Ling, ordering him to go to the law department immediately. Wei Ling was like a mountain. Lu Yi could bargain with Gan Wudong on the exploding fire spirit stone issue, but he did not dare to be careless at this moment. He immediately rushed to the law department. Soon he saw Gan Wudong from last time. Compared to last time, Gan Wudong's attitude was undoubtedly much warmer this time. When he saw Lu Yi, he patted his shoulder affectionately and said, "Well done." Although they had signed the Tianji contract and had an agreement, when the results were right in front of him, Gan Wudong was certain that Lu Yi really had the ability to refine 1,000 exploding fire spirit stones a day. With these things, the law department's enforcement team would have one more way to deal with enemies when they were out on missions. It would also reduce the number of casualties imperceptibly. Previously, because of Lu Ye's haggling with him, that little bit of unhappiness had long since disappeared. "As long as you're satisfied, sir," Lu Yi replied. "I'll give you a day off. You can continue refining tomorrow, but I have to tell you that you can't fall behind in your cultivation. You have to know that the higher your cultivation, the higher the efficiency of your refining." Lu Yi thought to himself that refining this thing did not seem to have much to do with his cultivation, but there was no need to say such things out loud. Soon he realized something was wrong. "Sir, I have to stay in Haoyin City to refine exploding fire spirit stones in the future? What's wrong?" Gan Wudong looked at him in confusion. Lu Yi said, "Sir, did you forget that I'm from Tsangyin Mountain Pass? I only asked for a day off to get promoted, but I've been delayed for almost 10 days already. Although the leader of the risk team did not ask me to return, I can't just stay here forever. Wouldn't that be desertion?" He still carried the identity of Tsangyin Mountain Pass Guard and Patrol Guard of Great Moon Pass. Of course, with his promotion, he had now become the Guan Commandant and the Patrol Commandant. If he stayed here for a long time, the monthly salary he could get with these two identities would definitely be gone. This was unacceptable to Lu Yi. Just these two identities alone gave him a monthly salary of 60,000 battle merits. Gan Wudong looked at him in shock, speechless for a moment. He was so happy that he completely forgot about this. Suddenly he felt like his heart was being stabbed by a knife. Such a talent is not from my law division. Damn it, why was this brat only a Cloud River Realm 9th Order when he came to Haoyin City and not a true Lake Realm cultivator? If Lu Yi was a true Lake Realm cultivator at that time, Gan Wudong would have recruited him into the law division. Lu Yi did not notice the change in Gan Wudong's expression and said, "Sir, how about this? You give me the fire spirit stones and I'll take them back to Tsangyin Mountain Pass to refine. Every once in a while you can send someone to pick them up. Although it's a bit troublesome, it's the only way I can think of." Gan Wudong raised his hand and stopped him. "Wait a moment." Saying so, he raised his hand and tapped his battlefield mark to send a message, but no one knew who he was sending it to. Lu Yi stood quietly to the side. Gan Wudong walked back and forth with his hands behind his back, looking a little anxious. He sent a few more messages but they all seemed to have sunk into the sea. Helpless, Gan Wudong could only look at Lu Yi. "Use the guard token to contact your Mountain Pass master. Tell her I have something to discuss with her." Last time, when King Gungwu asked him to transfer Lu Yi back from the front line to join Team A3, he was afraid that Thought Moon Immortal would crack his skull open, so he did not dare to agree. But after discovering that Lu Yi had the ability to refine fire spirit stones in large quantities, his desire for talent finally overcame his fear. He wanted to take a risk. But he did not expect that Thought Moon Immortal would ignore him, which was very awkward. Brother Shen. Shen Zhangqing walked on the road, and when he met someone he knew, he would greet them or nod to them. But no matter who it was, no one had any extra expression on their face, as if they were indifferent to everything. To this, Shen Zhangqing was already used to it. Because this was the Demon Suppression Department, an organization that maintained the stability of the Great Qin Empire. Their main duty was to kill demons and monsters, but of course they also had some other side jobs. Could be said that, in the Demon Suppression Department, everyone's hands were stained with blood. When a person was used to life and death, they would become indifferent to many things. When he first came to this world, Shen Zhangqing was not used to it, but as time passed he got used to it. The Demon Suppression Department was very big. Those who could stay in the Demon Suppression Department were all powerful experts, or people who had the potential to become experts. Shen Zhangqing belonged to the latter. Among them, the Demon Suppression Department was divided into two professions. One was the Guardian, the other was the Demon Exorcist. Anyone who entered the Demon Suppression Department would start from the lowest level, the Demon Exorcist. Then, step by step, they would be promoted to the position of Guardian. Shen Zhangqing's previous life was a trainee Demon Exorcist in the Demon Suppression Department, which was also the lowest level of Demon Exorcist. He had the memories of his previous life. He was also very familiar with the environment of the Demon Suppression Department. It didn't take long for Shen Zhangqing to stop in front of a pavilion. Different from the other places in the Demon Suppression Department that were filled with killing intent, this pavilion was like a crane in a flock of chickens. In the Demon Suppression Department that was filled with blood, it presented a different kind of tranquility. At this moment, the door of the pavilion was open, and people occasionally came in and out. Shen Zhangqing only hesitated for a moment before stepping in. Entering the pavilion, the environment suddenly changed. A burst of ink mixed with a faint smell of blood assaulted his senses, causing his brows to instinctively furrow but quickly relax. The smell of blood on everyone in the Demon Suppression Department was almost impossible to wash clean. Chapter 9-10. After hearing Gan Wudong's words, Lu Yi realized that Gan Wudong had sent a message to Nian Yuxian. Even though they hadn't known each other for a long time, Lu Yi knew her temperament. If she didn't want to talk to someone, she wouldn't respond no matter how hard that person tried. Gan Wudong obviously couldn't reach Nian Yuxian and wanted Lu Yi to pass on the message. Lu Yi had no choice but to use the Wei token to contact Nian Yuxian. Soon Nian Yuxian got a response. Seeing this, Gan Wudong was speechless. My lord, how should I respond? Lu Yi looked up at Gan Wudong. Tell her I have something urgent to talk to her about. Gan Wudong ordered. Lu Yi did as he was told and looked up at Gan Wudong with a strange expression. What? My lord asked you to leave. Lu Yi reported. Gan Wudong was speechless. Lu Yi was also speechless. Two Divine Sea Realm cultivators were using him as a messenger, especially one of them who didn't sound nice. What was going on? Also, my lord asked me to return to the Vicissitude Flame Mountain Pass in 2 days. I can't stay for any reason. Lu Yi continued. Gan Wudong sighed. The Wei token had been given and Nian Yuxian couldn't be contacted. Lu Yi couldn't stay. Gan Wudong thought about it and agreed to Lu Ye's suggestion. Let's do as you said. Every 7 days I will send someone to the Vicissitude Flame Mountain Pass to get the goods. If you need to go out, let me know in advance. Yes, sir. Lu Yi obeyed the order. These are the materials you need for the next 7 days. Gan Wudong threw a storage bag to Lu Yi. Lu Yi took it and checked it. There were 10,000 fire spiritual stones inside. After leaving the law department, Lu Yi didn't leave for the Vicissitude Flame Mountain Pass immediately. Instead, he sent a message to King Jianghu and the others and asked them to come out for a small gathering. A few days ago, when the members of Team A3 recovered from their injuries, they asked Lu Yi about it. In any case, everyone could be considered to have gone through life and death together, and the mission was more than completed, so it was naturally worth celebrating. But at that time, Lu Yi had been ordered to refine the exploding fire spirit stone, so it wasn't convenient for him to leave at will, so he delayed the time. Now that he was about to return to the Ash Flame Mountain Pass, he naturally had to fulfill his promise. The location of the gathering was chosen by King Jianghu. It was in a restaurant in Great Sky City. There was nothing special about the gathering between cultivators. It was nothing more than drinking and chatting casually. When they were in the mood, they would come down and show off their skills. It was quite a lively scene. Their feelings for each other increased slightly. After eating and drinking to his heart's content, Lu Yi went to the divination hall. The Pan Mountain saber was repaired. After retrieving the Pan Mountain saber, Lu Ye's heart also calmed down. Without the Pan Mountain saber by his side, he always felt that something was missing. Now that the saber had returned to him, it was finally complete. Without any hesitation, he circulated his spiritual energy and soared into the sky, heading straight for the vicissitude Flame Mountain Pass. On the way here, they encountered the cultivators from the mysterious organization. However, on the way back, it was a smooth journey without any mishaps. In the evening, they finally arrived at the vicissitude Flame Mountain Pass and headed straight for the spiritual peak where the moon-yearning immortal bamboo house was located. From afar, he saw the thought moon immortal sitting by the window on the second floor. She seemed to be bored. She supported her face with one hand and looked in the direction he came from. When their eyes met, the thought moon immortal immediately retracted her gaze and fiddled with her fingers. Lu Yi came to the bottom of the bamboo building, cupped his fists and said in a low voice, "My lord, I have returned from my leave to report to you." The thought moon immortal responded softly. She continued to look at her slender white fingers, as if there was a flower on them. Below, Lu Yi maintained his salute and waited for a moment. Seeing that she had no other orders, he said, "I will take my leave." He turned and walked towards his bamboo building. Behind him, the thought moon immortal opened her mouth. She wanted to ask him how he felt during this mission with the law department team and whether he encountered any danger. However, in the end she did not ask. After living alone for so many years, she had long forgotten how to properly communicate with others. She did not expect that the mission Lu Yi carried out along the way would actually kill a Spirit Sea Realm cultivator. After returning from the Great Sky City, the days passed peacefully. Every day besides cultivating, Lu Yi fed the innate skill tree Fire Spirit stones. Then he took Yi and Hu Put to patrol outside for an hour. Although he also knew that patrolling near the vicissitude Flame Mountain Pass would not yield any results, he still had to be worthy of his monthly salary as a patrol captain. If he did not patrol like this, he would be embarrassed to take the 30,000 battle merits monthly salary. The thought moon immortal was still the same as before. She appeared and disappeared mysteriously. Lu Yi often did not see her for several days. Occasionally when they met they would just bow and pass by. Nothing happened at the vicissitude Flame Mountain Pass, but another major event occurred in the 9 states. The Cloud River battlefield was reopened. Calculating the time, it had been almost 2 months since the fusion of the realms. It was indeed about time to end it. The reopening of the Cloud River battlefield meant that there would be a large number of Cloud River tier cultivators leaving the major passes at the front line. After all, for Cloud River tier cultivators, the Cloud River battlefield was their main home. Of course, not every Cloud River tier cultivator would go to the Cloud River battlefield. There was never a lack of cultivators at the major passes who thirsted for battle merits. Not to mention Cloud River tier cultivators, there were even Spirit Stream tier cultivators. After all, no matter how high one's cultivation was, as long as one joined the military state guard, they would have their own military rank and position, and could receive a monthly salary. There were also things that Cloud River tier and Spirit Stream tier cultivators could do at the various major passes. Receiving a monthly salary and exchanging it for spirit sticks to cultivate, the speed of cultivation would not fall behind too much. Compared to this major event that belonged to the 9 states, something had also happened in the military state. The Ziwei Dao Palace had established a sect. On that day, they announced to the military state that they had acknowledged the Jade Blood sect as their superior sect. They had chosen 30 peaks in the Fragrant Mountain as their foundation, and would help the Jade Blood sect. When the news spread, it did attract some attention. But that was all. Putting aside the fact that the Ziwei Dao Palace was a sect from the Peerless Continent, there were not many elites in the sect that could be brought out. Even the Jade Blood sect had long since lost its former glory. The combination of these two sects was like a newborn baby relying on an old man, and it did not attract much attention from those powerful forces. Fortunately, the old man had a wide network, so on the day of the Ziwei Dao Palace's opening, there were many Divine C-tier cultivators from large sects who came to congratulate them, and the scene was very lively. It also let the cultivators from the Peerless Continent of the Ziwei Dao Palace truly feel the power of the Divine C-tier. Inside the bamboo building, Lu Yi sat cross-legged, holding a fire spirit stone in each hand, urging the power of the talent tree to continuously absorb it. His expression was normal, but his heart was filled with anticipation. There was no other reason. The transformation of the talent tree seemed to be completed. It was finally going to be completed. It had been more than a month since he sensed the signs of the talent tree's transformation in the volcano of Mount Zhangyan. During this time, Lu Yi had consumed countless fire spirit stones. More than half of what he had obtained from the underground cave had been fed to the talent tree, and the consumption could be said to be incomparably huge. He had originally thought that with the harvest from the underground cave, he would no longer have to worry about the fuel for the talent tree in the future, but now it seemed that he had thought too simply. With such a large consumption, he had also become more aware of the transformation of the talent tree. Now that the transformation was imminent, he wholeheartedly devoted himself to this matter, and even put aside the matter of cultivation. Another half a day later, after consuming an unknown number of fire spirit stones and immersing his mind, the talent tree hidden in his source aperture suddenly shone brightly, its roots swaying. In an instant, Lu Yi clearly sensed the existence of the talent tree for the first time. He could not sense it before. Although the talent tree had always been hidden in his source aperture, and he could see it every time he immersed his mind, Lu Yi did not feel its existence at all. Until now. Lu Yi clearly sensed that there was a magical thing coexisting with him in his source aperture. Was the transformation complete? As soon as this thought flashed through his mind, Lu Yi was a little dumbfounded, because the talent tree suddenly shrank violently, and in the blink of an eye, turned into a ball of flame. Rather than a flame, it was more appropriate to call it a fire seed because its shape was like a seed. That was not the end of it. The seed burned fiercely and suddenly the flames exploded. As the flames churned, the seed sprouted, grew, and then a big tree appeared in his vision. Lu Yi focused his mind, and only now was he finally sure that the talent tree had completed its transformation. But it did not seem to have changed much. The unlit leaves on the talent tree were still shrouded in darkness, but the lit leaves seemed to be brighter. Other than that, there was nothing special. The roots seemed to have become more lush. That's it? Lu Yi's heart sank to the bottom. He had spent a huge amount of fire spirit stones, and more than half of what he had harvested in the underground cave on the talent tree's transformation. He had worked hard for more than a month and in the end, that's it? No, it shouldn't be like this. He immediately calmed his mind and as expected, he soon felt something different. In the past, he could not sense the existence of the talent tree, and naturally could not sense the various things inside the talent tree. But now it was different. He could sense the existence of this divine object itself, and through the talent tree he could sense the various things inside. For example, the amount of fuel stored. The talent tree had just completed its transformation, so there was naturally no fuel stored inside. There was some before, but it was all used up during the transformation process. At this moment, as the power of the fire spirit stones in his hands continued to be consumed, the fuel in the talent tree also began to accumulate. Continuing to sense it calmly, Lu Yi's expression quickly changed. Although he could not explain it clearly, he seemed to have sensed some changes in the talent tree, and the external appearance of these changes. With that thought, he immediately took out a mid-grade spirit stone, held it in his hand and then activated the talent tree's power and focused his mind to observe. The next moment, a scene that made him happy and shocked appeared. Invisible roots that only he could see extended from his palm, and wrapped around the mid-grade spirit stone. When he thought about it, a powerful suction force came from those tiny roots. The spiritual power in the mid-grade spirit stone disappeared at a terrifying speed, and flowed into Lu Yi's body through the roots. He had caught a cold and all kinds of discomfort. Chapter 9:11. The spiritual energy in the middle grade spirit stone was quickly devoured and turned into powder that fell from Lu Yi's fingertips. Lu Yi quickly took out another one. It was still the same. After the transformation, the talent tree had the ability to devour spiritual energy from spirit stones. In the past, the talent tree could only absorb fire elemental energy, such as the earth core fire and the fire spirit stone. It would not react to non-fire elemental energy. But now, with the transformation of the talent tree, the ability of the talent tree had also changed. It was no longer limited to fire elemental energy. If a true lake-stage cultivator used a middle-grade spirit stone like this, it would last at least half a day. But in Lu Yi's hands, it only took a moment for the spiritual energy to be used up. This meant that Lu Yi could absorb the energy from the spirit stone at an incredible speed for his own use. Whether it was for cultivation or recovery, the time spent would be greatly reduced. In other words, with this method, Lu Ye's efficiency in cultivation and recovery was not something that cultivators of the same stage could compare to. It was more than 10 times faster. Because of the existence of the spirit gathering funnel, his cultivation speed was much faster than cultivators of the same stage. Now that he had this ability, his cultivation efficiency would increase by a lot. Fast cultivation speed and high efficiency meant that he could use a shorter time to reach a higher stage. For cultivators, this was simply a dream come true. But while absorbing the spiritual energy from the spirit stone, Lu Yi also noticed that the fuel stored in the talent tree was also rapidly depleting. It seemed that the fire spiritual energy stored in the talent tree was not only used to burn the impurities, but also to maintain the power of the talent tree. After all, the spiritual energy absorbed from the spirit stone was extremely pure with almost no impurities. It did not need the talent tree to burn and refine it. But the fuel stored in the talent tree was still rapidly depleting. This was undoubtedly a problem. Lu Yi did not notice this before. First, he could not detect the amount of fuel stored in the talent tree. Second, he did not have such a cultivation method. This meant that if he wanted to use the spirit stone to increase his cultivation speed in the future, he would have to consume the fire spirit stone at the same time. Lu Yi could not help but feel lucky that he made the deal with Gan Wudong in Grand Sky City. Otherwise, with the fire spirit stone in his hand, he would not be able to maintain it for long. Initially, he only needed the fire spirit rock to activate the spirit runes on the talent tree. Although he needed a lot, it was fine as long as he had enough. But now, if he needed to use it to cultivate, there would be no end to it. Under such circumstances, it was naturally important to have a stable channel to obtain fire spirit stones. Yi and Hu Po were dumbfounded as they watched one mid-grade spirit stone after another being consumed. They didn't know what method Lu Yi was using to be able to consume spirit stones so quickly. Lu Yi didn't bother to explain, but in the blink of an eye, she saw Hu Po chewing on his Yao core, crunching it loudly. A bold idea suddenly popped up in his mind. Under Hu Po's confused gaze, he reached into the storage bag around Hu Po's neck and took out a Yao core. Holding it in his hand, he activated the power of his talent tree. Roots spread out and wrapped around the Yao core. In the next moment, a rich power was extracted from the Yao core and poured into Lu Ye's body. As the spiritual power circulated, it was refined by the talent tree and turned into pure energy. It really works. Lu Yi was shocked. It was just a sudden thought. The talent tree was no longer limited to absorbing fire-type energy. Since spirit stones could do it, then wouldn't it work with Yao cores? He didn't expect it to work. Sensing the change in the Yao core in Lu Ye's hand, Yi covered her red lips. Hu Po's tiger eyes widened even more. The energy stored in a Yao core was undoubtedly much greater than that of a mid-grade spirit stone. After all, it was the essence of a demon's lifetime of cultivation. It wasn't something a mid-grade spirit stone could compare to. But even so, it only lasted for a cup of tea's time before it completely dried up. What was left in Lu Ye's hand was only a dry mass of impurities the size of a jujube pit. Lu Ye was excited. After the transformation, the talent tree was no longer limited to absorbing fire-type energy. Spirit stones could do it, Yao cores could do it too. Could the spiritual power in a cultivator's body work as well? Lu Yi immediately extinguished this horrifying thought as soon as it appeared in his mind. Although he was very sure that the talent tree could absorb the spiritual power in a cultivator's body for its own use, doing so would be no different from eating people. There was still a huge psychological barrier. Lu Yi secretly warned himself that he couldn't open this trap. Once he did, it was very likely to lead to some extremely bad consequences. Under Hu Po's vigilant gaze, Lu Yi took out another Yao core from his storage bag. He examined it for a moment, then threw it directly into his mouth. Every time he saw Hu Po eating so enthusiastically, he had long wanted to taste a Yao core. Lu Yi. Yi couldn't hold back anymore and exclaimed. Hu Po's eyes were about to pop out. Master, how can you eat a Yao core? That's my snack. Lu Yi was surprised to find that the Yao core tasted pretty good. There wasn't any special smell. He swallowed it whole and quietly activated the talent tree's power. The roots in his abdomen twisted and quickly absorbed the energy in the Yao core. Gluttony's feast was also activated, and a buzzing sound was heard. In just a moment, the energy in the Yao core was completely digested. This was much more efficient than letting the talent tree absorb it. Lu Yi, are you all right? Yi asked with concern. She couldn't understand why Lu Yi would suddenly make such a rash move. Yao cores were generally used to refine pills and set up formations. Yao beasts would also eat Yao cores of the same category, but she had never heard of this thing being eaten by humans. "I'm fine," Lu Yi comforted. "I have an extra ability. I can digest it, don't worry." Yi was relieved when she heard him say that. However, she still paid close attention to Lu Ye's changes, fearing that something was wrong with him. Lu Yi reached out towards Hupo's storage bag. Hupo covered it with its 2 paws and looked at Lu Yi with a pleading expression. Its meaning was obvious. "I don't have much left." Lu Yi glared at it. Only then did Hupo let go of its paws. Although the transformation of the talent tree did not improve Lu Ye's cultivation, the ability of the talent tree now gave him many more cultivation methods and greatly improved his cultivation efficiency. As a result, his growth rate would far surpass his peers. Such benefits were simply unimaginable. Compared to a simple increase in strength, this kind of transformation could really affect Lu Ye's life and was something he desperately desired. However, along with it, the expenses he would have to pay in the future would be huge. For the time being, Yang Kai decided not to think about it. The transformation of the talent tree had been completed, so Lu Yi was in a good mood and decided to cultivate properly to reward himself. In any case, he had broken through to the first-order True Lake realm for some time now. It was rare for him to have such a stable cultivation environment and more cultivation methods, so it was time for him to raise his cultivation to the second-order True Lake realm. Connecting his consciousness to the heavens, a vortex of world energy appeared in front of Yang Kai. From this vortex, pure world energy poured out and spread out in all directions, wrapping around the figures of 1 man, 1 spirit, and 1 tiger. Adjusting to the level most suitable for himself, Lu Yi continued to absorb the power of the Fire Spirit Stone to replenish the energy reserves of the talent tree while constructing a small spirit gathering funnel. Yi looked at the vortex of world energy filled with world energy, her eyes slightly blurred. "Lu Yi, where do you think this vortex leads to?" "Who knows?" Lu Yi casually replied, "but I've heard people say that this vortex is connected to earth veins or spirit veins of different quality. That's why there's an endless stream of heaven and earth spiritual chi flowing out for cultivators to refine." This was common knowledge, but so far no one had been able to prove it because even the divine sense of a spirit sea realm cultivator could not penetrate the vortex to investigate the situation on the other side. However, there was no water without a source in this world. Such rich world energy could not be born out of thin air. There had to be a source. Therefore, the theory that the vortex was connected to earth veins or spirit veins of different quality was accepted by most cultivators in the 9 continents. Then if we can pass through this vortex, wouldn't we be able to cultivate in an earth vein or spirit vein? Yi suddenly had an idea. Lu Yi laughed, "That's a good idea, but unfortunately we need to have this method." Even the divine sense of a spirit sea realm cultivator could not detect the situation on the other side of the vortex, so how could they pass through? While laughing, Lu Ye's expression suddenly changed. Another bold idea surged in his mind. The divine sense of a spirit sea realm cultivator could not pass through this vortex of world energy. He wondered if the roots of the talent tree could do it? If it could, then wouldn't it? Thinking of this, Lu Yi could no longer hold back. He quickly raised his hand and pressed it on the vortex of world energy. Yi did not know what he was going to do, so she just watched curiously. Hupo was pouring out the Yao cores from his storage pouch, fiddling with them one by one, dejected. His claws were not enough, and he could not count them all. On the other side, Lu Ye's mind moved slightly, and a root that only he could see extended from his palm, probing into the vortex of world energy in front of him. The transformation of the talent tree this time allowed Lu Yi to sense the existence of the divine object, the talent tree. Therefore he could clearly sense the extension of the root. To him, the extended root was equivalent to his antennae. The root did not pass through from the other side of the vortex of world energy, which meant that the root had successfully probed into the vortex of world energy. Lu Ye's expression suddenly changed. Because in his perception, there was an extremely rich world energy on the other side of the vortex of world energy. The root's sense of touch was extremely sharp, and Lu Yi could feel it from all directions. Compared to the cultivation environment created by this method, there was simply no comparison. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.